disabled. So I fit all the categories.
What does that mean, 100% service-connected disabled?
So it means it's called total and permanent, which I am. It means I'm 100% disabled according to the Veteran Affairs Office, but also total and permanent, which means you can't, like right now, if a veteran is, let's say 100% disabled or 90% disabled, it's a weird system. You go in and you get your annual checkup, they could evaluate you and reduce your overall compensation and say, you're not 90 now, you're 60. And based on, they could say your hearing is better than it was last time. You know, you picked up a couple decibels, and we are going to reduce your pay and compensation and reduce your disability. So in the military, if you're 100% total and permanent, it means they can't screw with you.
So how are you 100% total and permanent?
So they do a formula. It's weird. Veterans Affairs is a weird one. But when I got out of the military, they did a formula. And they interview you. They do mental, physical checks. They do all the diagnostics, hearing, all that stuff. And when they evaluate you, they say, okay, your left ear sucks, so we're going to give you a rating. And it's like 40% or 25%. Like I got sleep apnea. That's a percentage. When they add it all together and sum it up, it could be over 100%. Mine's like 200+% when they've added everything. And then they go, okay, then you're 100% service-connected disabled, total and permanent, which means they can't evaluate you and reduce your compensation or your stuff. So me, for example, I am 100% service-connected, but I have TBI and post-traumatic stress because of that TBI, which is kind of what I wanted. This is a weird one, but if you talk to a military guy, an Andy Stump, all these guys that are buddies of mine, when they come out of the military, especially in special operations, they don't want to say they're disabled or they have a problem,
right? Or
they have post-traumatic stress. So I don't know if this is luckily, but I think it's better. TBI, because the symptoms of traumatic brain injury happen to be the same as post-traumatic stress, they could label you as having that. My concern, which is a concern even today, if they label me with PTSD and said, you're 100% connected because you have PTSD, we're going to take away your guns. So the red flag laws and all that scare the hell out of me and a lot of veterans. When I went into the Veteran Affairs for my evaluation, it was in Texas, in San Antonio. And I walked into the office, and there was a long hallway, and there were dudes doing construction in the hallway. And I heard a loud bang behind me as I entered the room. And the doctor was looking at me, and I turned around and was like, what was that? And just turned around. Like, you do that to noises, especially bangs. And I turned back around, and she goes, a little jumpy, are we? And I was like, oh, shit. Christ. Like, here we go. And we did the interview, and they asked questions like, have you been in combat? Yes. Have you killed people? Yes. Have you seen dead bodies? Yes. How many dead bodies have you seen? Hundreds. Well, we find that hard to believe. Like,
what?
Straight up.
So they're challenging whether or not a person who's actually been to combat, whether or not you've seen X amount of bodies.
100%.
I find that hard to believe.
100%.
Holy shit.
The biggest.
What does that feel like when someone's questioning you like that?
It was the most disgusting thing. I almost got up and walked out. That was the psychologist evaluation. When I got my physical eval, it was a gentleman who was a veteran. Most of the guys are veterans. They served in some capacity, so they get it. They understand. But they're used to dealing with shitheads. And I want to be careful because there are guys who suffer from post-traumatic stress. There's dudes who get blown up. There's dudes that go through a lot. But the reality is most people who serve in combat don't do so at what I would call the tip of the spear. They're not in the front lines. They're not involved in continuous combat. They might have one rotation. So most of what they see are people who have maybe gotten blown up, maybe not even been to combat. They have the fear of impending doom has created this trauma inside of them, and then they want disability. And I'm not judging because some of those guys do. I know some of those guys, but they're not used to a guy who has an experience in combat where they volunteered for it, they wanted it, and they did years of it. So when I talked to the guy and he physically evaluated me, he's like, So move your neck, because mobility is a part of the equation. And I couldn't move my neck a certain way. And he goes, I find that hard to believe. You can't move your neck more than that. I'm like, I'm injured. And he goes, well, let's talk about the history of where you've been. And I started lining out my combat time. And he's like, oh, this is different. He goes, well, who'd you serve with? And I was like, I was a Green Beret. I'm like, oh, okay. So how many years in combat? Yeah, 4 years in combat. Oh, okay, well, this is different. And he almost like shifted and almost apologized to me, because he's like, hey man, I'm used to seeing garbage.
Okay, so they're used to people that are trying to like kind of scam the system a little bit so they don't have to work again.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but just to challenge you on that way, I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
Like, I find it hard to believe you can't move your neck. Like, bitch, you don't know my neck.
I know.
It's like so crazy that they would immediately go to that.
Yeah, and there are some VAs that are better than others. I will say this about San Antonio especially. I went to counseling because they're like, hey, you need to go to these counseling sessions. And I had a counselor who was a Vietnam veteran who lost his legs in combat. And he was a long-range surveillance guy. So he's a combat arms guy like me. Immediately we had rapport because I respected what he said. And I trusted him because we had this uncommon, unspoken experience. And he helped me through some shit. And that was beneficial for me. But there are places throughout the country that don't give two shits about veterans. They're checking the block. It's impossible to fire a GS. We know that, historically speaking. From
GS?
A government service employee. Like the guys who got caught, like they were GS civilians and they were doing vacations and all these different things. None of those dudes got fired during all this controversy. Wounded Warrior was involved in some controversy over some stuff. None of these guys in the GS realm, when it comes to veteran affairs, the system, are being held accountable. And so the system's still broken. I mean, I went there recently and was dumbfounded. Every time I go in there, it's depressing because they're not doing a good job.
I just would imagine how infuriating it would be for someone to tell you that they find it hard to believe how many bodies you've seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if they're used to seeing 99.9% of the people they talk to are saying, I've never seen a dead body or I saw one. And I say hundreds. I get it. These people are like, they're like, what? That's impossible. But I would say there's a big discrepancy of understanding of combat, period, and what the top 1% see. Even the Vietnam experience, let's call it 68 to 75, 1975. MACV SAW guys were doing cross-border ops in Laos, Cambodia with the CIA. And they were doing profound, insane missions. Some of these operations, like John Stryker-Meyer has been on Jocko's podcast, these guys went out and their entire teams were wiped off the planet. Missing in action, killed in action. Nobody saw them ever again. These guys' experiences in going to the Veteran Affairs system and then talking to somebody who's interviewing a cook in the 82nd Airborne Division, two very different stories there. But who are they going to believe? And then what's the difference? I don't know if there is a difference. If you're an 82nd cook and you're on Route Irish on a 50 cal and you get blown up, it's just as relevant as if you have multiple combat tours and you got blown up. You still need treatment. You need care, comprehensive care, but we're not getting that.
And so the fear is that you could get labeled because of your experiences. You could get labeled as being, would they say, impaired or incompetent, and they could take away your right to carry a firearm?
Yeah, because the red flags law, or the proposal for the red flags law, is anybody who is deemed mentally unfit to carry a firearm or to buy a firearm.
And that's subjective?
Very subjective. So, and here's the thing, like if you're looking at a packet and the packet that comes forward, it says Green Beret, sniper, and he's killed a lot of people and he has post-traumatic stress, who's more dangerous to society? That guy or a guy who's got anxiety or depression?
Right.
It's going to be the Green Beret killer.
Yeah.
I applied for a job when I got out of the military to do kind of like the Department of Energy, working the power plants and security. It was like a security manager position. I had a degree in Army. I got my degree, my bachelor's degree, at the American Military University. And got a Homeland Security degree, which was this was a prerequisite for this job. And when I applied for that job, I submitted my resume not knowing better and outlining what I did. And it said I was a sniper and all this stuff. And I thought it was like cool guy stuff that like people would respect that in the civilian world.
Right.
I didn't get that job. And I had nearly 20 years of experience in crisis, counterterrorism, and risk mitigation, all these things at a very high level. I had a bachelor's degree, and I was overqualified for the position, and I didn't get it. One of my buddies who was sitting on the board for that job said they thought it was high liability that I was a sniper and applying for that job because he kills people, and that's a bad thing. And so when I think about these red flag laws, and if this, depending on who it is, call it whatever, X administration, everybody who's labeled, you have PTSD, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to have a gun. You're not even going to be able to buy a gun, and that's a problem.
Wow. So if you're hiring someone to do security, so you're hiring someone to protect you from potential armed threats, wouldn't you want someone who has experience with potential armed threats? Wouldn't you want someone who's experienced gunfights?
Yeah, and I think the overall problem is like when they ask me if I had post-traumatic stress, they're like, based on our evaluation of you and what you're saying, you have PTSD. And I said I didn't agree. And so I got it to where they said, okay, you have TBI and the symptoms are associated with PTSD. I guess I can give you a thumbs up with that. I guess that's what I'll take.
So how do they define PTSD? Because there's got to be many layers or many levels of that, right? So if you're saying it's post-traumatic stress disorder, like what makes it a disorder? Like obviously you've experienced stress. Obviously you've seen trauma. You've obviously been in war and combat. How do they define PTSD?
It's a questionnaire. So they, just like many things in the military or in the system, it's based off a questionnaire and guidelines. So if you get too many answers on the questionnaire wrong, then you'll be labeled as somebody who has PTSD.
Like what kind of questions?
But it's very subjective. It's, have you been to combat? Yes. Okay, now we're getting deeper down the funnel or the rabbit hole. Have you killed anybody in combat? Yes. Have you had nightmares? So here's a subjective one. Andy Stump talked about this as well on his podcast. But if you say, have you had nightmares? I have dreams. And when I have dreams, I'm with the boys going to do what we did. We're going on helicopters, going and killing bad guys. Combat for me in those dreams isn't a terrifying thing. It's like where I wanted to be. It was fun. It wasn't difficult. It was easier than civilian life. I don't have to worry about bills and drama with relationships. All these things, it's very simplified. Okay, well that's subjective because you're saying you have dreams about combat. That's nightmares. Because there's not a part on the answer that could say, hey, he's having dreams, but they're not night terror dreams about combat and dying. So he could be labeled somebody who has PTSD because of that. Like I have buddies who answer the questionnaire who don't have PTSD. I don't think I have PTSD. Do I have transitional issues? Certainly. I serve, the analogy is like a dog. If a dog in the military serves for 20 years, and then you take that dog who's used to biting people's asses, sniffing out bombs, getting blown up in combat, training as a protocol, and then you transition them to the living room and it's your house pet, that shit's not going to work. There's going to be a transitional period. Give me a buffer. Give me some time to kind of unscrew my systems, get back to a normal protocol that's civilian life, and then question me. But they're questioning these guys right after they get out, and of course they're going to be fucked up. Of course they're going to be all screwed up. And legitimately, some guys have PTSD. They've been blown up in the one moment, but most of the guys that I know, Jack Hart, Tim Kennedy, all these guys that I serve with at pretty high levels, we don't have PTSD. We profoundly enjoyed our experience. There's nothing traumatic. I'm not shivering underneath my blanket, worried, concerned about war. I'm actually more having nightmares about missing out on those kind of efforts with guys that I serve with who are, certainly still serving.
That's such an interesting perspective for people who haven't served. The idea that you feel like you're missing out on it, and I appreciate your honesty, saying that it was fun, or saying that it's easier than civilian life.
Yeah, it's the first thing. Like I transitioned out of the military in a contractor with a Central Intelligence Agency, and it was a smack in the face because, call it a brotherhood, call it tribe, call it whatever you want. I had a great run with amazing human beings. What I noticed when I went from the military to waking up in an air mattress in an apartment in San Antonio is civilian life sucks. Where do you go for connectivity, for tribe? If you don't belong to a dojo, if you don't belong to a gym, if you don't go to a church, then you don't have that feeling of purpose and that feeling of community. So I went from a place where my family were the teammates that I served with and transitioned into civilian life where everybody's worried about their own game. They're very selfish. I mean, for the first time, likely in the history of our country, you don't know your neighbors. You don't know who's in the apartment next door to you. You're escaping trying to even interact with those people, and it's fucking depressing. So I thought the military experience for me was easy. And a lot of guys who come back and have to deal with bills, relationships, all the shit that civilians deal with, that's hard. And that's the difficulty. It's not necessarily a traumatic experience in one moment in time that took place that is the PTSD. It's like getting kicked in the dick every day being a civilian when you didn't have to before because you have everything, at your fingertips. That would give you PTSD if you didn't have it.
Have you ever read Sebastian Junger's book, Tribe?
Great book.
Yeah.
Great sum up of the experience. I wish there was more context. Like he needs to put out more on it. But, he went out to Restrepo in Afghanistan and experienced that at a very high level. And then even in his own reflection, leaving that, he was like, man, I'm missing something. And, societally, I think profoundly, likely a lot of the issues we're dealing with, depression, suicide, drug overdoses at a record high, are caused because of that lack of purpose, that lack of tribe. And maybe in a way, all the guys like myself, Evan Hafer, we're all trying to pick up our own tribes in our own way. I mean, that's certainly why I started my company.
No, I think there's definitely something to that. And there definitely seems to be this thing that happens to a lot of guys when they get out of the military. It happens to a lot of guys who do anything where you have a tight-knit group of people that are like-minded, that are trying to do the same thing. You see with fighters, too, where they retire from fighting and then they're not in the gym anymore. They're not training with guys anymore. They're not like, you're not traveling together all the time and supporting each other, and they lose themselves, and many of them start drinking. They get into drugs. They need something to try to either soothe themselves or give themselves some sort of a feeling, because the feelings that you have when you're training and fighting, I would imagine it's even far more extreme if you're in the military and then you're overseas and you're with these people and you have this intense bond, and then all of a sudden it goes away. Now you have none. Now you have no bond, and now you're doing a job that's not interesting at all. You're just getting paid. You're bored as fuck. You're watching TV. You're drinking beer, and you're like, what am I doing? Like, what is life?
Yeah, there's that many jobs that translate from a military experience, period. I mean, what are you going to be, a fucking cop? I mean, like you take
one of the few jobs, right?
One of the few jobs, but
cop, security.
But you take a guy like Andy Stumpf. I like picking on Andy. You take a guy like Andy, high level, experienced operator, and he gets out and he becomes a law enforcement officer. What would that look like? I mean, you got a guy who is, he was on the Jessica Lynch raid. He rescued Jessica Lynch. And he did all these high-level counterterrorism operations where he's on the varsity team. And then he gets back home, and now he's not even JV. I mean, he's not even relevant.
He's writing speeding tickets.
His whole persona, by the way, most military guys' persona especially in the special operations community, we wear that proudly, right? You go, your whole life is not, it's the profession is not the job. It is your life. You work out 2 hours a day because you're a professional athlete. You pay attention to detail and planning and execution. You pay attention to kit. You shoot, move, and communicate every day. On the weekends, you're shooting civilian USPSA because you want to be better as a practical shooter so you can be better as an operator. All of these things matter, and that's your life. And you churn what we call the playbook, where it's you train up for combat, you go to combat, and then you have a down cycle, which doesn't exist. And you do that for 20 years, 2 decades. And then the machine spits you out, and then what do? Well, you fucking die. I mean, for the most part, most of the guys that I know who aren't seeking purpose in some profound way, they fucking die. They kill themselves. Andy Stumpf and all these guys are doing, the 7 jumps, 7 continents for legacy expeditions. Amazing. They just did it. They did it in 6 days. And that kind of thing is their way of giving back and doing something profound. People think it's extreme to jump out of airplanes. Andy, Jericho, Logan, all these dudes, Mike Sorella, they could jump out of these airplanes like they brush their teeth in the morning. There's nothing extreme about it, but they're doing all they can to bring back purpose into their life, to give back. Because I think that's, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's giving back, whether it's building community, that's the closest thing that feels like it was on the teams where you're doing something selfless in service. And guys miss that. And, I've had 3 guys that I know kill themselves in the last 90 days. Jesus. That come from my community of combat arms and special operations.
What kind of guidance is available, if any, to guys from special operations when they want to leave and enter into civilian life? Do they give you any sort of tools to mitigate the problems that would come up during that process?
There are some good nonprofits like Warriors Heart Foundation here in Texas with Tom Spooner. They do amazing things. They do amazing work. But there's nothing that I've seen that is fully integrated. Now, if you're a member of a special missions unit, a high-level player in counterterrorism, they have their nonprofits doing good work that are helping those guys out because it's smaller numbers, I would say. But if you're a ranger, if you're a Green Beret, if you're a regular Army kid, you have no tools at your disposal. I mean, when I cleared the Army in a week and signed out of the military and then transitioned into the CIA. And there were no tools, no briefs, no understanding of what civilian life was going to be. So as much as we prep our guys to go downrange and put them in harm's way to kill bad guys, we should be thinking the same thing about setting them up for success and transitioning them into civilian world. Or they're going to look at themselves as the bad guy. And that's what they're doing. I mean, most of these guys are checking out, by the way, because they are looking at themselves as liabilities and burdens. And we are taught there's 2 kinds of people, liabilities and assets. And if you're a liability, you need to cut sling load. You need to get rid of the liability. And if you could make yourself an asset, you can, but what tools do you have at your disposal? So when you get out and your wife is upset because for the first time you're home and you're just pissing her off, your kids don't know you, you can't get a job, you don't have tools, you don't want to bug your teammates who are doing the job right now, what do you have left? Well, you look at yourself as a burden and you check out. And that's what a lot of guys are doing.
Jesus. And what about like giving you, do they give you any counseling on how to deal with some of the more traumatic experiences of the military, how to get over it? Like if they think you have PTSD or they think you have like some nightmares and night terrors, do they give you any sort of counseling on how to mitigate those issues, how to calm yourself down? Or
Zero. When I was in, there are some good programs now being kind of run, but I would say it's mostly, look, the war machine is just that. There's an incentive to go to war. And the guys who want to go to war are going to find ways to go to war. If you come back from war and you do a questionnaire and they say, do you have problems, especially mental health issues, and you say anything, you're going to be pulled from the team. So you're not even going to be sitting on the bench. You're going to be pulled from the team. You're going to be put in some staff job while you get counseling. Everybody's going to ridicule you. They don't even have to say anything. You just know they are hating on you.
So everybody knows this in advance?
Everybody knows this in advance. So there's no incentive to raise your hand and say, I'm having problems. And most, I would say, don't have the tools to self-identify if they're having problems. Even in myself and a lot of the guys I serve with, when we are drinking a little bit too much or when we're using Ambien to go to sleep because we can't sleep, all these things we thought were normal because we're part of the culture. And then when you kind of separate from that, you get your shit together. If you're lucky, you look back and go, damn, I was really fucked up. I was really screwed up.
So when you got out, and how do you transition into fieldcraft survival? Like, how much time was it, like, from being in the CIA? When did you decide to start doing this?
So I was downrange with the government in Pakistan, and my riding partner was a Navy SEAL, and he was the brother of Owens, Ryan Owens, who was killed in a hostage rescue with SEAL Team 6. And we were kind of looking at our lives and assessing everything. And I was a babysitter for case officers. Like 13 Hours in Benghazi does depict the job well, and there are some accuracies there. But that obvious catastrophe is unique. The actual job every day is mundane. It's boring, but it's necessary. I was just fucking done, man. I was like, dude, I'm tired of babysitting fucking people. I was a reserve sergeant major here in B Caves. Big shout out to 19th Special Forces Group and Special Operations Detachment Africa. I was actually Tim Kennedy's boss, his J3 sergeant major. And so I was going down range with the agency, flying back, turning around, putting on a different uniform, and deploying overseas to Africa, then coming back, putting on a different uniform, and then going back overseas. I had no life. So I said, I need to start something for myself, and survival was that thing, but not like naked and afraid survival, not like bushcraft shit. When I think about survival, I think of modern survival. Like, what do you do to be better prepared to deal with shit that's statistically probable, the vehicle accident, all that shit. So I started the concept in Pakistan, got back from that trip, and resigned everything. So I'm fucking done. Hung it up, and then I remember the first day of going, holy fuck, this is me. Like, whatever I do right here, right now, it's all up to me. I had $25,000 of big baller contracting money to go to work, and that's where I kicked it off.
So you just started from scratch, like, let's make this work because we have to.
That's it. I had no options at that point because I had no fucking life. I mean, my life up until that point was serving in a military or government contracting capacity and chasing the fucking rainbow. That's what I was doing.
And you just realized you couldn't do that very much longer.
I realized, like, looking at teammates that were 50 plus years old who were making $50,000 a trip, going back home, blowing it on dumb shit, buying the next Harley, the next pickup truck, getting broke, and then coming back doing it again for decades. That's not the overall experience for most, but seeing that, I was like, I don't want that. I want a life. I wanted a family as well.
And so how difficult was it to sort of craft this fieldcraft survival program and then to get it out there? To get it to the point where now it's like it's a big thing on social media, and you've got a huge following and a lot of videos with a lot of views, and it's very popular. But, like, what was that like to try to get that launch? Because you were essentially starting from zero.
Dude, it's the hardest fucking thing, and like, it is. There's not a survival industry, right? If you think survival, most people think naked and afraid, bushcraft, rubbing sticks and shit together in the woods. So the idea of modern survival didn't exist. So we knew we were pioneering kind of a new thing. And every business advice that I got was, don't do that because it's too much. It's too much shit. Also, when you look at preparedness as a whole, it's got a bad stereotype, the tinfoil hat shit, right? So I had a lot of stigmas to break, stereotypes to break through, and then I had to create a protocol. One of the first things that I did was I read a book called Survival Psychology by John Leach, which talked about the reason people live and the reason people die. And I was super interested. Limited information out there on survival psychology, by the way. John Leach described the reason people live and people die, and the sum up was a formula he called 10-80-10. Have you ever heard 10-80-10?
No.
So 10-80-10 is the demographic of people broken down by percentage in population of all the case studies he did of catastrophes, ships sinking, massive fires, all kinds of shit. And he determined that 10% of the population of most disasters survive. And the reason they survive is because they make rapid decisions, they adapt in real time, and they come from lines of work where that's necessary. The military, law enforcement, teachers, people who are cognitive under stress in the moment and make the right decision. 80% of the population is broken down about 50-50. They're guys who have good intent, they make the decision, but on a second floor fire, they'd run to the third floor, they jump out and they fall on their fucking head, right? They had a plan, but it just didn't work out for them. And then the bottom 10% is the bottom of the barrel, where 10% of every catastrophe, people are just going to fucking die. They're just going to do something. They're going to jump off the boat when the boat's sinking, not realizing or forgetting they can't swim. And they hand out life preservers to everybody else but themselves. They jump in the water and they fucking drown. So when I assessed this, I started looking at psychology, statistical probability, and I realized I needed to create something in the preparedness world that was realistic. Because a lot of guys, they talk about things in, the apocalypse, the worst case scenario. What I wanted to do is kind of sum it up to a question I had, and this was my business kind of hypothesis. Why do special operators go out and do the most dangerous missions in the world and survive? Like if you took me and my team in 2007 under Task Force 16, we were working with JSOC. So you got 22 SAS British operators, you got SEAL Team 6, you got the unit, you got Ranger Regiment, you got the Commanders in Extremist Force, which I was a member of. They're going out every night with good intelligence of Al-Qaeda and crushing dudes. In that trip, we lost a couple SAS guys. So the British commander came out and gave this go to war speech. We all had our kit on. And in that moment, we thought we were going to get like a memorial speech. Like, hey man, we lost these guys. It wasn't that. It was a go to war speech. It was like, people die in combat. This shit happens. Get your kit on. Let's go out and kill everybody. And I'm like, holy shit. And so we would go out every night and prosecute targets with like 99.9% success rate of not having casualties on target. So the question would be, well, how can we do that? Most people think being in special operations is a dangerous job. It's actually not. So being a cook in 101st Airborne Division, and you're told to get on a 50 cal and go down a main supply route because we don't have anybody else, that's a dangerous job. But when you plan for things to go wrong and contingencies, when you're fit, because that's part of your culture, when you fight, that's part of your culture, when you look at the equipment and you pay attention to all these things that matter, it's a lifestyle. So if people want to be better prepared, I came to the understanding that they have to live the lifestyle. This shit can't be a hobby. We were talking about like new guys getting guns before. If a new guy gets a gun and they think that gun is going to solve their problems, if they go out and get a go bag with all the cool shit because they buy it off the shelf at REI and throw it in the trunk of their car, but they haven't integrated it into their lives, trained it, used it in education, taught it to their kids, then it's a tool that's not likely going to be utilized. So we needed to redefine that culture. We needed to create it from fucking scratch is what we did.
And does that culture include like an exercise program? Does it include like a mindset program?
Yeah, it's all of that. So we do online training. We do in-person training. We offer products. We do it all. For example, we just did a family preparedness program called 62, named after the Homestead Act of 1862. It's a long-form online course, 12 weeks long, where we teach people in the academics how to jar, how to defend yourself, how to treat a wound, how to maintain situational awareness, all that shit, which is very comprehensive. We even teach people how to homeschool their kids. I mean, homeschooling your kids up until recently wasn't a thing. It's increased, I think, 10% since 2016.
Well, it increased a lot during the pandemic.
It increased a lot during the pandemic. That 10% is like $56 billion of savings to the American taxpayer. And a lot of people are insourcing this, but these tools that we teach breed self-reliance, where you don't have to depend on systems and institutions. You could depend on yourself. So it's all that.
What program do you use to, like, when you're saying you teach how to homeschool your kids, like, what are you using as a curriculum, and like how are you devising that?
So we have an app coming out in June. I have a book called Prepared that launches, and we're hoping to have the app finished by June 6th, which is D-Day when the book drops. When that drops, what we hope to have on the app is the core curriculum of academics required for in-home education. It won't translate across all the states, because some states are stricter on homeschooling than others. In Utah, you could teach your own curriculum as you want. Where Amber lives in Louisiana, the same thing applies. So math, science, arithmetic, all the basic skill sets are going to be taught on the app, and then including ideas around self-reliance, like how to make a fire, how to build a shelter, what happens if you're wounded or you get in an accident. All those things we want to teach, similar to what Tim Kennedy is doing at his school, but doing it for the online homeschool mom. That's also preparedness education as well.
So how did it come up that this was being labeled by the government as potential terrorists?
Oh, Lord. Oh, man.
Because when I read that, I was like, this has got to be a mistake. Like, this has got to be just a misinterpretation of what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So I will say this. When I thought I was being suppressed, and then people were like, yeah, but, it's just your analytics suck or whatever. I was like, yeah, it's probably that. I was being optimistic about that. Well, when Kyle Seraphin, have you heard that name? He's the FBI agent who leaked the documents of militant violent extremists, MVEs, that were determined by the FBI of being people and groups of interest. I knew it was a reality. This just recently happened. This is probably 6 months ago. This just got leaked. So let's back up like a couple of years. When I started a group called American Contingency, the idea for that group was coming from the issues in Chaz. Remember Chaz? Like that little shit community. They basically blocked off a city block in Seattle.
Yeah.
And a rapper did that. And the police told the community, the police chief told the police through an email, we will not respond to calls in and around the area of Chaz unless it's a mass casualty event. So there were law-abiding citizens who were getting affected by politics, coming down on law enforcement officers and telling them not to do their damn job. So when this kind of evolved, I said, I'm going to start a group called American Contingency where people can depend on each other. They could help each other out. So that kind of manifested itself into a group, a forum, and the FBI analyst that was doing open source searches on intelligence discovered the group and determined that we were extremist and labeled us so. When he did that, he contacted Facebook. The FBI contacted all these social media platforms. My company account got shut down from Shopify. Shopify said, you have 48 hours to get your information and you're gone. So a multi-million-dollar business, gone. No way to get it back, no way to contest it or fight it because I don't have millions of dollars and a lawyer to fight it. 48 hours to offboard it, and it was gone. The FBI also told Facebook banned us on all the traffic. American Contingency got banned, and all the shit got shut down. Suppressed for years and thinking like, what the hell is going on? I had an insider in Facebook who just got laid off during the Meta layoff. He actually, 4 months ago, before he got laid off, I said, hey, can you look into American Contingency, a community-based group, a freaking group of good Americans helping each other in a time of crisis, natural man-made disasters. I said, can you see if we can get our account back now that this thing's leaked and they've determined I'm not a domestic terrorist? They call me a white supremacist. There's actually an article on a leftist, wrote like a 20-page article on a leftist organization. It's like a .org. USA Today published it. And when the national media picked it up, it spread like wildfire and everything got deleted. When that happened, I said, hey, is there a way that we could maybe get our stuff back? Because they're saying we acknowledge it was a mistake. These guys and this guy, Mike Glover, is not a terrorist. He looked into it and got a response from the India team, from India, that was managing my account that said, we looked into it and he is a domestic terrorist. And we cannot free up this account because he's been labeled a domestic terrorist. How that got determined was likely from the FBI telling everybody, but it still exists today. I mean, today it still exists, and I'm walking on eggshells.
So you today are listed as a domestic terrorist.
A domestic, on Facebook, which translates to Instagram, I am listed as a domestic terrorist. I have the screen grab from that conversation from Team India. Ireland was managing my account when it originally got deleted. They offboarded to India, which obviously there's going to be cultural issues there. I am still labeled a domestic terrorist group with American Contingency, and myself labeled that as well.
Now, when they do this, do they have to point to any one specific thing that you guys are advocating? Like, how can they just say you're a domestic terrorist because you're telling people how to travel from Arizona to Canada and one tank of gas, and how, to treat wounds and how to deal with a one-on-one combat situation? Like, what don't they have to have one thing they can point to? Well, Mike Glover said this, so this puts him in that category.
There was some analysis done from Kyle Seraphin, who, when he did this, he screen grabbed some stuff, and it looks like it was just this analyst said it. He was actually rebutted by some guys that I know in the FBI, likely hostage rescue guys that I work with overseas, like good dudes. I mean, the FBI hostage rescue teams are great guys. But it was likely told and communicated through some kind of agreement between Facebook and the FBI where they say, hey, here's the blacklist. And I can't prove this, but this is Kyle thinks the same thing. Here's the blacklist. Blacklist all these guys and all these organizations because they're potentially extremist. I mean, the 3%ers, the Proud Boys, who we are not any of those, we are lumped up in the same exact list as that. And it said these guys have a low history of violence. And I'm like, what the fuck does low history of violence mean? Like, zero should be zero. It's low, but it's zero. And we even had proof. We had to submit proof of January 6th that we weren't involved at all. In fact, I went out and said, hey, as a organization, you should be concerned about taking care of your family, defending your family, taking care of your family. Stay the fuck away from Washington, D.C. That is literally what we put out. And still, that wasn't enough to get us off the list.
It's that you have to prove that you weren't involved in January 6th. How nutty is that?
Crazy.
Instead of them showing, hey, you were involved in January 6th, you have to go out of your way to show that you weren't where something like that could be the case with every fucking event that happens in the world. Prove that you weren't here. Prove that you weren't there.
Well, a lot of the guys who were getting rolled up, they were doing assessments of CCTV cameras and just using facial recognition to identify dudes and just go roll them up. And I never thought to ever go there because the whole thing was fucking dumb to me. But I'm like, dude, imagine if I showed up with a correlation of, hey, this guy's labeled a terrorist. He's on site. Fuck, I'd be the commander of terrorists. I mean, that's enough fidelity to get me lined out and go, this dude's in prison. I mean, That would have been me.
With your background, especially since they've already decided to label you.
Yeah.
it's just so nuts to me that you have to prove that you weren't a part of something when there's no evidence that you were. Like that, the burden being on you to prove that you weren't there is so crazy.
The guy who wrote this, it's Googleable, but if you probably put in Mike Glover domestic terrorist, a couple articles will launch. They had pictures of me and a whole bunch of people in Heber City, Utah, where my headquarters is at. In those pictures, we were doing community events, raising money for charity. And they were calling, they said like Green Beret, teaching militia, all these different tactics. Dude, it was actually impressive writing. It looked like AI wrote the shit, like that chat
GPT,
shit.
yeah.
GPT wrote it. Because it was so well structured that if you read it and you didn't know who the fuck I was, you'd be like, this dude's a terrorist. And dudes were blowing me up. Like guys were hitting me up on Twitter. They're like, oh, this guy's a fucking terrorist. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like all I want to do is, I feel like I earned it. You know, I had the 20 years of service. If you asked me that 10 years ago, I'd say, no, I'm still earning it. I feel like I earned it. I'm an entrepreneur running a business, trying to live my best life, and I want to be left the fuck alone. And now I'm being labeled a domestic terrorist by the same organizations I worked with and for.
And no advocating whatsoever about trying to overthrow the government or attacking people or taking back your rights or storming the Capitol. Nothing. Zero. All of it, I've seen your shit. All of it is about being prepared for natural disasters, for the grid going down, something happening where you have to protect yourself or your family. That's it.
That's it.
And if anybody learned anything during the pandemic, they should have learned that we have a fairly fragile civilization. If the grid goes down, if a natural disaster happens, if something goes sideways, look, with a disease that kills a very small amount of people, shut the entire country down. And it wrecked the economy and fucked up a lot of people's lives. And we didn't learn from that. We didn't learn like, hey, you know, maybe we should have some food stored. Maybe we should have some contingency plan. Maybe we should have a full tank of gas always when we park our car at night so we can get out of town. Maybe we should have, you know, firearms or, you know, fishing poles, like fucking something. Maybe we should have something. The idea that nobody can look at that people can't look at that and go, oh, this isn't domestic terrorism. This is just smart. This is just being prepared for disaster. This is being prepared for worst case scenario. The idea that being prepared for a bad case scenario makes you a terrorist is fucking nuts. That's really crazy.
Yeah. It was a kick in the dick for sure. I mean, and
that it could affect your business like that. They could shut you down.
Yeah. When they shut me down, my merchant service account at the same time shut us down.
And you can't fight that. You can't say, like, what are you talking about? How are we a terrorist?
No, but we tried to rebut it through emails, but they're like, nah, this shit, we're not going to, you can't do it. You could do it with millions of dollars and a lot of litigation over the course of time, but you don't have the ability to do it, and we couldn't do it. I couldn't afford to do it.
And they don't even have to have an example?
No. No recourse. And it's still, I mean, as far as I know from 4 months ago, Facebook, if you went in and you tried to type in AmericanContingency.com into Facebook or Instagram as a algorithm, it detects it and will shut it down. They delete. My mom is an entrepreneur, Korean immigrant. Well, she married my dad when she was when my dad was stationed in the Army in Korea. Brought her over, started her business from scratch. Like put a one chair salon in our garage that was dirt garage, put concrete down, and started that business from the ground up. Worked 29 years at this point building this business. Had a Facebook account with a few thousand followers in Fayetteville, North Carolina at Miwa's Beauty Salon and Spa. They deleted it. They deleted her account because she reposted something from that account saying something like, I'm proud of my son. And they deleted her account because anybody who reposted the link immediately got their shit deleted with no explanation, completely deleted forever.
When did this become a narrative? Like, when did being prepared Because, they used to have those prepper TV shows, and a lot of them just seemed paranoid, and some of them just seemed wise. Like, some of them just seemed like, hey, it'd probably be a good idea to have some food laying around. Probably be a good idea to have a plan in case anything goes bad. Well, when did it become a narrative that someone who's preparing is a potential domestic terrorist?
I think it was the onset of the COVID. When COVID happened, we were talking about preparedness years prior to this. In November of 2019, after watching Bill Gates' documentary on basically COVID, I think it was on Netflix, and he was talking about pandemics and all the potential for mass catastrophe and loss in human populations. We talked about it, and it was a thing. Like, we said, hey, like, these are things you got to be prepared for. Look, our mission statement is we want you to be best prepared. We don't care what walk of life you come from. Being prepared needs to be inclusive. I hate that fucking word, but it needs to be inclusive, because disaster is an equal opportunist. It doesn't give a fuck who you are. It doesn't care what race, what wealth bracket you come from. It will hand you your ass. So our thing was, if you plan for the worst case scenario, by default, you're covering everything in between. So yeah, we use in our verbiage worst case scenarios, but we're not trying to be doom and gloom, because we're talking about practicalities. My guys teach self-defense. 2019 is the last statistic. Around 400 justified shootings according to civilians. Not a high probability you're going to be in a fucking gunfight, but you should learn to defend yourself and your family with responsible firearms ownership and gun handling. That is not extreme. But when you sum it up and you say, we're a preparedness company, and who owns the preparedness company? A former CIA bootlicker, a fucking a Green Beret sniper, whatever the narrative is, then we fit the narrative for them. So
you fit the Bundy Ranch sort of
100%
militia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? Ruby Ridge.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge.
Yeah.
But the idea that they could just label you like that without any examination, and that all it has to do is being prepared. But so then it becomes, at what level is preparedness terrorism? Like, can you have food? Can you have guns?
I don't think you can.
Can you have water? Like, at what level are they worried about you? And when you're not saying, hey, we need to overthrow the government, all you're saying is, I don't want to die if the power goes off. Like, how the fuck does that make you a terrorist?
Yeah. Well, and if you look at it too, it's a good relationship and collaboration with guys like us, companies like us, and the government, because we're straining the government less.
Yes.
Right? So when you look at this bomb cyclone that ripped through our country, this bomb cyclone came through and then brought a wave of rain across the country that dumps snow. Rain comes in, it floods everywhere, it fucks up everything. One of the issues were, like in New York, there was a girl, 22 years old, who died in her car on a city street 6 minutes from her home. She spent hours in her car FaceTiming, messaging her family, and was like, I'm stuck. And I don't know the cause of death, but I likely would venture to say it was probably the snow covering the exhaust, and she died of carbon monoxide poisoning. Because that happens, right? If the snow covers the exhaust, it backfills into the cab, through the engine and into the vents, and you die of carbon. You simply go to sleep and you die. But if people are dying, which dozens of people in that county in Buffalo, New York died, then us educating people on best practices and tactics on not dying should not be seen as extreme. But here's the problem. When I did American Contingency, we had thousands of people on board, hundreds of thousands of people on board. And when you have control and the communication to a population, let's say it's my market, but they look at it as like, that's your militia, they get concerned. Because the more that you have control or influence, then the scarier they become, the more oversight they want. And that's what we've seen. It's like the more that we talk about preparedness, it doesn't have anything to do with that. It's about control.
But it's just crazy, because the influence that you have is influence over people telling them how to take care of themselves. That's all it is.
Yeah. To quote a good buddy, Greg Anderson, no one's coming to save you. Our our motto is you are your own first response.
Greg Anderson, the Seattle dude.
Yeah,
I
he's
like that
rad,
guy.
dude. You got to have him on. He's
have him on.
a rad human being, man.
I like following him on Instagram.
Yeah, he's dope. We're collaborating with a lot of stuff. One of the missing components that we are missing in our program is jiu-jitsu, and we want to start an American jiu-jitsu program in our program because that's the start point, I think. Anyways, Greg is like, no one's coming to save you. Ours is you are your own first response. And we say, hey, look, you have an officer, average, let's say it's 8 to 12 minutes, average response time of a law enforcement officer or a first responder, a paramedic, EMT. If you let's say you cut your femoral artery in a vehicle accident and you bleed out and die, and you could have done something about it, that's important. But if the narrative is shifted, then it's you're not supporting law enforcement and you're saying law enforcement is bad and you're anti-government or anti-police or whatever it is. So what they're doing is taking all the communication we have, reversing the narrative to fit their cause, and then using it as a talking point. And that's what it's been. Essentially, this analyst at the FBI who did this assessment, he put it out there, immediately got rebutted. I assume it's a hostage rescue guy from their HRT. A guy comes in and goes, and it's anonymous, and you could probably see it on the back end, but he's like, hey, I know Glover. I've went through all his stuff. Dude, they went through my DD-214, like my military record, and they went into my medical records at the Veteran Affairs. It's Kyle Serafin's sum up has all the things they did. They looked into my background, pulled my med records to look at all the shit that I've been through to determine if I was potentially fucking crazy. And I'm like, how is this happening right now? And why the fuck are you guys worried about me? There are terrorists you need to worry about. There are investigations that actually matter, and you're fucking with me.
Yeah, they're trying to ban you from Facebook. Meanwhile, the Taliban has a blue check on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
The Taliban bought blue checks on Twitter. There was a whole article about it the other day.
Fucking insane.
Which is fucking wild. But, Twitter is the last place you have to worry about now because, the way Elon's handling things, he's opened up a lot more to people being able to have free speech. But the idea that you would be labeled a terrorist because you're trying to protect people and give people the option to save themselves, essentially, to get yourself out of harm's way and have the schooling and the tools to be able to survive if something goes bad. The idea that that's domestic terrorism is so fucking crazy. Like, I really wish it was a recourse. I really wish there was some way for you to not just get everything back, but people, you can't just do that. You can't just decide that people can't prepare for the worst case scenario and lump them in carelessly and recklessly into terrorist groups because you don't like that idea for some strange reason. Because in your head, you've equated preparedness to domestic terrorism, which is so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, what do they have in common? They both are worried. Like what one is worried about is very different than the other. That's like, what does a serial killer and you have in common? Do you both sleep? You both drink water? Like, what the fuck are you saying?
Yeah.
It's like there's a real value in knowing what to do if something goes bad. How many people in that Buffalo freeze could have saved their lives if they had some sort of a prepared plan, if they had a bug out bag, if it's like a sleeping bag in their car so they didn't freeze to death? People froze to death in their fucking cars. Yeah. What if you had something, some sort of a blanket? Like, I have friends that live in Alaska. They don't go anywhere without something in their car to keep them warm. If something goes wrong, you get a blown out tire and you're 100 miles outside of town, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, you're staying put and you need to stay warm. And those people are ready for that. Like, are they terrorists?
Must be.
What the fuck? It's just this nonchalant ability to just recklessly label people because what? Because they have a military background? Because there's little boxes that you want to check, so you want to be able to lump them easily into a dismissible or even worse, a marginalized a group of people where you're able to just like stop their progress, stop their business, stop their influence. It's fucking crazy. It really is.
Yeah. Ted Cruz is the only. I mean, there's been a few. Ted Cruz grilled the FBI director when this shit happened, and Kyle told me they deleted it the next day. So it was up on and whatever their open source system was, it was up. They deleted it the next day after that was done. But this isn't new. I mean, this has happened. Like Ruby Ridge is a good example.
Yeah.
You got Ruby Ridge, by the way, is seen as a success by the FBI,
Which is crazy.
which is fucking bananas.
Tell people if they don't know what Ruby Ridge was. Tell
Yes.
them the story behind it.
So Randy Weaver, a Green Beret from Vietnam, shacks up in rural Idaho, and he decides that he wants to have a life off-grid. And the FBI, doing an investigation with the ATF, finds out that he has some kind of gun issue. And they need to do an investigation, and they need to go on site. But this is almost, it's crazy because there's similarities with our situation. You find out the guy's background. Like if you're developing a target packet on a bad guy, you would want to know the guy's background, right? That's the first thing you do because you want to assess potential risk to force and you want to mitigate risk overall. What's his background? Green Beret, Vietnam. Oh, fuck, right? Then everybody gets all fucking crazy, right? They start going, oh, we need to find out more. So they do surveillance. They don't just do off-site surveillance. They don't do long-range surveillance. They get in ghillie suits and low crawl to his fucking cabin, right? In ghillie suits. His son and his dog are out on the property because it's his fucking property, and they discover these guys in ghillie suits. The son raises his rifle, shoots and kills one of the FBI guys, and the FBI guys kill his son. So what would you do if you own property in rural anywhere in America, you hear gunshots, and your fucking son's dead, and you don't know what's going on? And it's a bunch of dudes in ghillie suits. So he winds up locking himself and barricading himself in the cabin, and then they deploy the FBI hostage rescue team, HRT. I actually interviewed one of the guys that was he was in the sniper site as a sniper for FBI HRT when this went down. So long story short, they kill his wife as well, shoot his wife.
While she was holding a baby.
While she was holding a baby. They think, talking to one of the snipers, they thought that he was charging them into their position, but he was fake charging. Like he was making like a gesture like he was charging. So they got panicky and they started breaking shots off at him. I don't know if they wounded him, maybe he wounded him, but he gets back inside, and so they dump the next person they saw, which happened to be the wife. So they end up barricading the place even more, and his ex-commander is the one that basically does a call out and gets him to negotiate and then eventually gets him to surrender. So all this is said and done, the FBI is found in the wrong. They sue the FBI, they win. It's a insanely controversial topic, but if you look at the FBI, two of the successes, I mean, there was guys who got awards from the FBI on that fucking mission. Like
even though it was proven that they were in the wrong.
Yeah, even though it's proven they were in the wrong. Like Waco is a good example of it as well. But this is what I'm talking about. Like there's a breakdown between organizations in the government and their powers that be, and likely a cascade, a tipping point of mistakes that cascaded into the catastrophe that it was. But that's the problem. I mean, we're seeing those things now. Like what I do with my business in a free society is none of your fucking business. So if you are the director of the FBI and you know agents are probing into people's lives who happen to be veterans, happen to be minorities, like fit all your shit, and they're fucked up, those dudes need to be fired. And you need to make a statement to the public letting them know, hey, we're not fucking around here. We don't want constitutional rights infringed upon. This guy was wrong to do that. And what happened on our end, nobody cares that we potentially lost our, me and my marketing director, Rob, stayed up for 72 hours and built everything back from scratch. I had a guy, and I was teaching at Gritter Sports in Dallas, Texas a couple days ago, teaching a pistol course. And one of the guys was wearing a Philcraft hat. And he goes, you know where this hat's from? I was like, my fucking website? Like, no. When you guys got shut down by Shopify, I bought a hat. And when I got shut down, we were losing everything. No revenue coming in, everything. The business was gone. I put on, hey, I'm selling hats through Venmo or through PayPal or Venmo. You could buy these hats. This will keep my company afloat. If you're interested in supporting the business until I get this unfucked, please help. $15,000 worth of hats in a couple hours. And one of these dudes bought these hats.
That's nice.
But amazing support from our community. But that shouldn't be happening to Americans. And my story, like, man, like we work through it. That's what like good dudes do with good people. Like I got a great team. We just fucking work through it. We adapt, we improvise, we like overcome these obstacles. But we've had to do it a lot. There's many cases and points where people's lives were ruined because of this. We're more resilient than that because we're a preparedness company. We're expected to be. But there's dudes who are fucking getting crushed and destroyed. Their lives getting destroyed.
How has Tim Kennedy experienced any similar kind of pushback with his sheepdog organization? Yeah.
Not as much with sheepdog.
But it's the same kind of thing.
The same kind of thing. Like, it's funny because people always tried to put us up against each other because they're like, oh, basically you're like a sheepdog response. Well, technically I started before Tim started sheepdog response.
Also, you're friends.
And we're fucking buddies. Like I would support sheepdog response in any way, and it's a great program here in your backyard, by the way. It's in Austin. It's based out of Austin. He gets it, but he gets it from all angles. I mean, they shit on him and Chad Robichaud when they saved all those Afghans and did the evacuation. I mean, they were shitting on those guys like, oh, you guys are bootlickers, you guys are rebels and cowboys. It's like there's always somebody to try to shit on. And we get it enough by people who are fucking dumb. We don't need the government to get their nose in it as well and screw things up, which they are. They're overreaching a lot.
I just can't understand why they would equate someone preparing for the worst case scenario and giving people tools to stay alive. I just don't understand how they could just shut down your Shopify, shut down all these things. It's
when I start there. This might be an example of how the mindset is. When I started my company, I had military guys go after me and say, "Why are you training civilians?" Because a military guy from the soft community, they don't come out of the soft community and teach civilians typically. They teach law enforcement, military. And guys are like, why the fuck would you train a civilian? Like there's nothing they need to know. Like, what do you mean? There's nothing you need to know. Like, well, you're teaching them all these advanced classified tactics. I'm like, dude, one, I'm not that cool. Two, I don't teach anybody any classified tactics. I teach them self-defense. I teach them situational awareness. I had a guy who goes, Mike, you guys are teaching people TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care. And it's a course, right? You have to go through the course. Like, you shouldn't be teaching those guys that. They need to be EMT. They need to be paramedic. You could build a fucking Tesla, like a homemade Tesla, chop-shopped in your garage from a YouTube video. And they're getting offended that I'm teaching somebody how to apply a tourniquet that you could learn in 3 fucking minutes to stop the bleed from getting injured in an accident.
Do you think it's just because the way it looks to them without examining it and having a conversation with you about it?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of all of this is because there's no context. There's no conversation.
Right. That's it.
There's no explanation. You see the headline, and even if we're talking about the bug out course, well, that's extreme. I don't know about that. I don't know about those guys, the tinfoil hat guys. I'm like, well, if you give me a couple minutes to explain my case, we have a lot of liberals who are in Fieldcraft Survival because they were disaffected by all the shit going on in California and LA. And they said, man, this doesn't seem radical. I need to know how to shoot a firearm. I need to know how to apply a tourniquet. I need to know how to have a right mindset. And more we're breaking through those barriers. But it's difficult because most of the time there's no context or conversation after the fact.
Well, it's like we were talking about before that I knew a lot of people in LA that were very anti-gun until the George Floyd riots. And then those same people were asking me how to get a gun. Some of them asked me if they could. I had more than one person ask me, how many guns do you have? Could I borrow one of your guns to keep a gun at my house?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's how weird things got, where people realized like, oh, no one's going to save me.
Yeah.
What Greg Anderson was saying.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you. And in Austin, they know it for a fact because if you call the cops, Like I know people that have businesses, and there was just an article today I was reading about people whose businesses get smashed into, and they call the cops, and it takes an hour to get there. Cops are overburdened, understaffed, underappreciated, and you have to have some sort of a contingency program. You have to have some sort of a plan. You have to have some way to protect yourself. You can't just plan on this system being there for you, and especially in the case of a natural disaster.
Yeah.
I just was furious when I was hearing that you were being labeled in that way and that they were ruining your business. I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense. It's a valuable thing to learn. It's a valuable thing. You can choose not to incorporate it into your life. You could choose to. But the idea that someone teaching something is that going to be the case with everything? Is that the case with jiu-jitsu? Like you know how to fight, so you're dangerous, and we don't want dangerous people. Is that what it is? I mean, at what point in time do you decide that preparedness and being someone who plans out for the worst case scenario is a bad thing?
I think you remember back in the day. I grew up in ninjutsu. I took ninjutsu back in the day. Was it Stephen Hayes?
Yeah, I remember that dude. He was always on the cover of Black Belt magazine, throwing stars and shit.
Yeah. Was it American Ninja? Or was it White Ninja?
There was a bunch of movies. There was American Ninja movies, and there was this one guy who was like the most famous ninjutsu guy. But if you ever watch that guy like move around, he didn't know jack shit. He was helpless.
It was crazy, man. My first experiences in ninjutsu were kind of funny because all my instructors outside of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I was in Spring Lake at the time, they were Green Berets. So imagine a whole bunch of Green Berets. They're studying the art of the time, which is ninjutsu. It's like the dark art.
What year was this?
This is early 90s. Early 90s.
So this is like before UFC.
Before UFC, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which opened up everybody's eyes. Like, oh, shit.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my mom, we were broke as shit, man. My mom we were very poor at the time. And she couldn't afford a lot, but she was like, I took Taekwondo like every Korean kid in Fayetteville. And was like, this is lame. I want to do something a little bit more aggressive. Is there something like a dark art or something?
A dark art.
there wasn't BJJ. I wanted to practice katana fighting with wood katanas. And a ninjutsu studio opened up in Spring Lake. And I go in there, and one of the first classes that I had, there was mirrors in the dojo. And the instructor comes in, and he goes, Mike, I want you to stand in that mirror. And I stood in the mirror, and I'm looking at myself and just like staring at myself. And my mom's kind of looking, and she takes off. She's like, I'll be back in an hour. She comes back, and I'm looking at the mirror thinking in my mind, oh, this is just part of the thing. We're going to do some meditation, like whatever. Like we're just going to do this and then get to work. He leaves us there for an hour.
Staring in the mirror.
Staring in the fucking mirror. And my mom comes back, and she like looks at me, and I could see her out of the corner of my eye. And I leave with her, and she's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I pay good money for this.
And you just stared in the mirror.
And you stand in the mirror for an hour. What is going on? I don't know if it was like a tactic or whatever it was, but I actually learned a lot about myself in those many instances. I don't know if that's practical, but, for a kid who had, probably ADD at the time, having to stand still for an hour and stare at myself for an hour, you figure your shit out really fast. You figure your happy place. You become more disciplined. And
that's hilarious that it actually worked.
Yeah, it actually worked.
Because there's a lot of those guys that existed before the UFC that were just frauds. There was a shit ton of them, and they would start their own schools, and they would teach people, and they literally didn't know how to fight. They
were making shit up.
They were making shit up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. My friend Eddie Bravo went to a place like that. He started off at a place that was just making shit up. And his instructor pretended that he was going off to China to train. And then Eddie saw him in the parking lot at a fucking supermarket. Like he saw his car. He's like, I thought he was in China.
Of course.
He goes and the guy's in there. It's like he's just a bullshit artist.
Yeah, those days, nobody had it figured out. Nobody had it mapped.
Yeah.
And whatever the master said in the dojo was gospel. And it was held in high esteem.
Yeah.
Anything this dude said, I would have bought into it.
Do you ever go to fakeblackbelt.com or McDojo Life on Instagram?
They're funny as shit, man.
There's so many of them.
Yeah.
There's so many fake martial artists still out there.
They're still doing it.
It's amazing that they still exist. And then the weird thing is this thing they do where they like have this death touch on people and the people just all fall down.
Dude.
Because it seems like these people really do believe that they've been touched by some crazy chi energy and they fall and they can't move their body. There's a lot of them. There's like hundreds of these videos. It's like, what is that sort of mass psychosis? What is this, like hypnosis? Like, what is it about that death touch thing that it's so prevalent?
Yeah, it's like, what do they call it? It's like survival surrender is a term in survival psychology where you submit and you just give up. It's like a primal instinct in us to have like a mechanism to kind of give up when there is a last-ditch effort and we just kind of pass out. It's like whatever that mechanism is. Same thing happens in church, like with people speaking in tongues and they touch. My mom was going through some shit when I was a teenager. And we used to go to different churches all the time because she was like experimenting and figuring out her shit. And we winded up going to a tent one time.
And a Pentecostal?
Yeah, dude. It was.
Did they have snakes?
They had all the shit.
They had snakes?
They had every fucking thing. It was I looked at my mom and was like, what is going on? Like, why are we here? And they brought up my cousin and I in front of everybody. And this dude tried to do the thing on our heads. And my cousin fell. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's been touched by God or something. He touches, I'm thinking he's going to shock me and I'm going to be laying next to my cousin.
Right.
And he pushes on my head and I don't feel anything. And I'm waiting for it because I'm thinking like my cousin just dropped. I trust my cousin.
How old are you at the time?
I'm like 15. And he hits me and I'm like, nothing happened. I look at my cousin and he opens his eyes and he's like looking at me and kind of smirks and I'm like, oh fuck. So he hits me and I fall next to him and we're laying at each other, like looking at each other, smiling. I'm like, dude, what the fuck just happened? And my mom, after that, she's like, I'm sorry guys. I didn't know it was legit. She was trying to go through.
So you just had to lay down. You had to pretend.
We had to pretend.
Oh my God.
I think a lot of it is that peer pressure. You just.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if you don't do it, you're the guy who doesn't do it when everybody's doing it.
Well, I mean, I can say as a kid that started out in martial arts as a young teenager, when you go there, your instructor has this power over you that's beyond, like, they're not just a mentor. They literally are a master, and they're the ones that are going to teach you martial arts. And, you know, I was a pretty disrespectful kid, but when I was in martial arts, everything was yes, sir, no, sir, and you know, I had like great reverence for the dojang. Like I didn't treat it in any way like with disrespect. You never did that. So like, if you have that, but my instructors were legit. They didn't try to, you know, give me any death touch. But if they did, who fucking knows? I mean, maybe I would have like. Maybe you just don't want to admit that your guy's a fraud too, so you just kind of like go with it.
Yeah, he's a mentor in your life.
Yeah.
And if the mentor's a fraud, then it kind of screws up everything you worked hard for.
Well, martial arts and cults, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Especially like traditional martial arts. Not saying that they have the negative aspects of a cult, but they have all the potential for cult-like ideology. Like
for sure.
The master, the students, the master is unchallengeable. You can't question them. And then you also have like some very bizarre beliefs about their abilities that are above and beyond that of a normal person. They're untouchable. If they wanted, they could kill everybody. And I think that's like what happens in cults. You know, you were talking about Waco. I think the only way you let some guy fuck everybody's wife and take all the money and stockpile guns, like you have to really believe that this dude is in touch with God. Like you have to really, really buy into it. And I don't know what it is about people that want to believe something that's like that this one person has these extraordinary connections to the higher power or the extraordinary power above and beyond that of a normal person. I don't know why that is that people want desperately to believe that there's someone like that out there.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking for something. And when they find that, and maybe just a glimpse, they, like you said, they want to believe it. And that's all they need to get started.
Yeah.
And once they come in and they're optimistic about that, and you can't tell them that it's not real. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, you see it on online behavior, right? Somebody puts out something, and people just pour on the bandwagon. They want to believe it so much, and it's like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Like, is this shit just? You said something, there's no evidence or proof of what you said, and everybody's like, let's do this. I mean, you could look at January 6th and think that. I mean, everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and then they showed up, and then they were like, oh, what the fuck what are we doing now?
Not just that, but they were instigated by the FBI. That's what's really crazy.
Yeah.
What's really crazy to me is that, look, I'm not an anti-government person by any stretch of the imagination. I'm certainly not an anti-intelligence agency person. And I certainly do think they're very valuable. But there's definitely people in there that are taking shortcuts. And when you're instigating people to do something that they were never going to do without you instigating them, when does that become entrapment? Like when you look at the Whitmer case where they're trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan, and it turns out that 12 of the people that were involved out of 14 were federal informants. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then these two guys who get sent up the river for life, they're like, what the fuck? Like, this was all fantasy. I'm a moron.
Yeah.
Like, they organized it. They came up with the idea. They formulated the plan. They wrote it all out. They talked me into doing it, and then they arrested me.
Yeah. And it's like what it is the definition of entrapment.
Right.
And also it's what are you strategize? Like, you're sitting at a table and you're coming up with strategies, and that's your course of action one. Your course of action one is like, hey, we got these two losers who have nothing better going on in their life. Let's convince them to do some dumb shit and then put them in prison. And then it's a victory for us all. How much shit, like the cartel, all the drugs, all the real issues that we have to deal with, and these are the things that you're focused on? I mean, most of these guys who came out of the January 6th debacle, like the guy who sat at Nancy Pelosi's desk, he's like,
yeah,
I didn't fucking know what I was doing. He's like, I didn't even know it was Nancy's desk. I saw a piece of paper and thought it was Nancy, and I wrote her a note, and I regret the whole thing. It was fucking dumb. Is that an insurrection, or is that just dumb people doing dumb things?
It's definitely dumb people doing dumb things, and it's definitely poor security. And there's also a lot of weird shit where the cops just open up the gates and let those people pour through.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen those videos.
They were walking them through. Yeah.
And then there's that guy, Ray Epps, that famous guy who they show him at the Capitol telling people to go in, and nobody's arrested that guy, no charges at all, and the FBI won't comment as to whether or not that guy was working with them.
It's crazy.
Look, for sure, they do find people that are about to do horrible shit. They infiltrate terrible organizations, and they do stop people in their tracks of doing terrible shit. But they don't know when they get in there, and then they instigate, and they're trying to make a arrest, and then you have stuff like the Whitmer case.
Yeah. Well, if you look at Waco, too, or even Randy Weaver, when you provoke and when you turn somebody into a potential threat, let's call them domestic terrorist, what did you do to incite that reaction?
Right.
I mean, Randy Weaver didn't do shit. Yeah, he broke the law. Likely he broke the law. But the idea that you're going to go there, kill his son with no recourse, and then somehow make it better by putting sniper hide positions and setting him up, if they killed him, like if social media existed back then, there would have been riots. I hope there would have been some kind of protest or dispute. But like even in my situation, the shit happened and there's no consequence. Nothing was done. Ted Cruz chewed out the FBI director. They deleted the shit. I'm still labeled it on all the platforms, and we could do nothing about it.
And your Shopify is still gone.
Oh yeah, the Shopify thing. It kind of bothers me because I like Shopify, and we had good success on Shopify. It's really easy to use for a new entrepreneur. Like, go out and get a Shopify fucking account, but I couldn't get it. I mean, they deleted my website that we worked really hard to build. They deleted all of our consumer data, which makes a business nowadays on e-commerce, and gave us no explanation, not one. They basically said, we don't owe you an explanation. You're deleted.
That's so crazy.
And it also
it gives you the incentive to become completely independent.
100%. Here's what I will say. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It's the idea of resilience. You learn resilience by exposing yourself to difficult circumstance, and then you adapt through adversity, and you become more resilient. So these things like Big Commerce came to me. I think they're based in Texas. Big Commerce came to me and said, look, we are a new platform. We don't suppress people for their ideas. And if you want to onboard with us, we'll make the process really easy. And we onboarded with them and haven't had an issue since.
So when you say they took away your website, like where was your website being hosted?
On Shopify, because on Shopify you could
have
use
a website as well.
Yeah, you could host it on there, which is why it was so great.
It's just so fucking crazy that there's no recourse.
None.
And
Zero.
And they can't point to any one thing. It's not like there's no real evidence.
Yeah, people in the FBI have said, American Contingency and Mike Glover were not domestic terrorists or organizations. They were just a pass-through entity that likely could lead to domestic extremism, which I don't even. If you put me
so
on,
then it's fucking so's Home Depot.
Yeah, you put me on a document and you say these things about me and it gets leaked. That's not good for my fucking business. I have a book deal. We're doing a History Channel show, like all the shit. I was waiting for them to drop me on everything. And then I likely would have went to bat to get a lawyer and everything else and spent the money and invested in it. But to be honest, I don't have enough time or money to deal with that shit, and we have to move forward. I don't know what else to do.
That's probably part of the thing that they count on, is that you don't have the money to move forward.
They'll drag that shit out.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they'll try to do. It's just it's very infuriating to me. And it's also, I think what you teach is very valuable. I mean, I've watched a bunch of your videos, and it's all common sense and really good knowledge and the way you lay it out. And I think it's good for people to learn. It's like if you find yourself in a situation where you can use some of these tactics and information to save your life or the life of others, isn't that valuable? And are we trying to pretend that it's not possible that the grid can go down, or that it's not possible that a natural disaster could take place, or it's not possible that there could be some sort of an attack where you have to flee the city? That's crazy. It's crazy to pretend that possibilities aren't possibilities.
A lot of the things that we teach now are likely to get worse with time. If you look at all the bad statistics, they're up. If you look at all the good statistics, they're down. And,
in terms of what?
Well, if you look at, let's take crime, for example. Crime is up across major metropolitan, highly populated, democratically ran areas, up 25 to 50% across the bandwagon. That's violent crimes, that's homicide, murder, rape, all the bad stuff.
Is it really that high? 25 to 50%?
25 to 50% in most metropolitan areas. Homelessness. You've seen the homelessness epidemic that is truly a systemic issue in San Jose, LA, New York, San Francisco are the biggest ones. That's like top 4. Those numbers are not going down. They're only getting worse. Does that speak to our lack of preparedness? Absolutely. It speaks to our lack of resilience. Most of the things that we thought we were going to teach at Fieldcraft were originally hard skills. Let's teach shoot, move, communicate. Let's teach how to apply a tourniquet. Let's teach how to use a ham radio, all that shit. That's important. But what's more important is building resilience in people. And that takes a different conversation and understanding. I also think it takes kind of an understanding of how the shit works in the first place. Because what we're really talking about in disaster is catastrophe, which is just how you react or respond based on a stressful situation. There's a term, trade anxiety. You ever heard that term, trade anxiety?
No.
Trade anxiety, I think I heard you recently talk on a podcast about people kind of not being resilient because they're already fearful of circumstance. And a lot of that lends itself from trade anxiety, which is people's, whether it's their experiences or background or their triggers and trauma or just their condition in stress. A lot of people walk around with trade anxiety where small shit is big shit. First world problems, a traffic jam could turn you into a sympathetic, nervous wreck where you literally are in fight or flight, smashing the steering wheel, screaming at the top of your lungs, more likely to commit a violent act. Well, why would that be important in preparedness? Because how you react to stress in low grade or high grade is important, because high grade is the catastrophe. Low grade is just everyday shit. So if you're not conditioned for low grade, you'll fall the fuck apart when you have high intensity and volume and short duration in time. So all of these things that we talk about in resilience are important to navigate. You have to be very good at navigating and being more resilient.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't experience any discomfort other than annoyance, mild annoyance. They don't have any real stressors put on their mind or on their body. And so whenever something real comes up, they don't have any mitigation tools. They don't have any ability to overcome and adapt because they don't have to ever in their life. It's like it's completely atrophied.
Yeah, I've studied this a lot, and not just the neuroscience behind it, but the application of how do we train it? How do we make people more resilient? And one of the things that's shocking to me, like you said, we live in a comfort crisis. 93% of Americans' lives are spent indoors, 93% on average. So 7% is spent outside. There's been multiple studies of looking at psychology, mental health, and the benefit of putting yourself out in nature. The book Comfort Crisis, Dopamine Nation are great books that talk about these kind of things. But that virtual reality that we spend on our cell phone is dumping all of our dopamine, and we don't have the desire to get out. We're not incentivized by our own chemistry because we live in an abundance in our society. Right. Feast and famine's a real fucking deal, right?
Yeah.
When you're famined, you're hungry and you go out and you want it. When I went to Ranger School as an 18-year-old, Ranger School was 70-something days when I went through. It was 2 months of simulated combat. You do 4 to 5, on average, 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day, and you eat 1 meal a day. And it simulates the stressors of combat, but you have to be able to operate in combat, right? You have to. It doesn't matter what you want. You have to be able to perform. After that course, at the end of that course, when I got told I was a go and I hadn't recycled, I took a shower after a couple weeks in the field. And the last phase of that's in Eglin Air Force Base in the swamps of Florida. I smelled like dog shit. I felt like it. And when that water hit my back and that warm water like soaked my body, it was profoundly created a memory in me of, man, that was impactful, right? So when I look back at my personal experiences, the most impactful moments were also the most famished moments in my life where I didn't have anything. It was very scarce. We live so comfortable in abundance, we don't have a calculation for this. So we think everything that's going wrong on social media, which is emotionally controlling the fuck out of us, is a disaster.
Yeah.
When an actual disaster hits you in the fucking face, maybe literally hits you in the face, then you're awoken and you go, fuck, oh, what do I do now? And you don't have the tools and you don't have the resilience to navigate it.
Yeah, the way I've described it is the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, even if it's someone being mean to you on Twitter.
Yeah.
If that's all that's ever happened, that's the worst thing. But that if you don't have the skills and if you don't have the experience of something actually bad happening where you have to figure out how to survive, or at the very least something where your character's tested and your ability to deal with adversity is tested and tested all the time, because I believe it's like a muscle, and I don't think it's anything that you could just like leave alone and know it's always going to be there for you. It's not like testing your resolve. I think it's a very important thing. That's one of the major benefits of exercise. I don't think it's just physical, because I think the physical benefits of exercise are undeniable. But one of the major ones is forcing yourself through discomfort, because there's a lot of people out there that don't do that. And when they're confronted by discomfort, they just don't know what it is. They don't know how to handle it. They like someone who works out all the time and is always just like jiu-jitsu guys. It's a great example because they're the calmest fucking people. And they're always getting strangled. They're always exhausted. They're always like pushing themselves through. So like normal, difficult shit is not that difficult because it's not as bad as some fucking strong ass motherfucker on top of you trying to literally cut off your carotid artery. That's what's happening on a daily basis. And if you don't have anything like that in your life where it's like Like there's times when you're rolling, you go into class and you're like, oh boy, I'm going to get fucked up. Here we go. And you don't want to, but you do it. You get through it. You get a valuable lesson out of that. You get more resilient, and it keeps building upon that every day, a little bit stronger, a little bit more, and at least maintains a certain level of ability to overcome and adapt. Some people don't have any of that shit in their life. Every day is just spent either in a car, on a train, on the way to work, in front of the desk, at home, watching TV, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. And they're literally like a fucking human jelly donut. Mm-hmm. There's nothing going on there. They have no resilience. That's no way to live your life. I know it's like easier to do that than it is to seek discomfort and to seek stressors and to try to overcome and adapt and figure out a life where you've balanced out strength and calm. But it's valuable to do, and it can be done. It can be done by anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at in your life. You can make changes right now and go about it in a different way from here forward.
Yeah, the number one thing that we teach people, like if you said, how do I become more resilient? It's exercise. Because a workout of the day where your body gets uncomfortable, it tells your mind you're going to die, essentially is what happens. Like, hey, stop doing what you're doing because you're going to die. Pushing through those barriers, those obstacles in your mind are going to make you more resilient. I do a stress shoot at the end of my classes. And a lot of people who technically train, and this correlates to fighting as well. Let me make the example, like you hitting a bag. Most people think punching a bag makes them a good fighter, or they'll virtue signal they're a good fighter because they punch a bag. So you say, you punch a bag, you look cool punching the bag, it feels cool, it looks cool, I must be good at fighting. And then you get on a mat or you get in a ring with a real person, and that's not how it works. It's the same thing with self-defense. A lot of people go to ranges. They shoot paper, they shoot steel, they fall in love with themselves. But they don't implement stress. Because when you are in a parasympathetic rest and digest and you go in like a flash, cortisol, norepinephrine dumps, and you're in a sympathetic fight or flight response, you shift. Your heart rate goes and spikes to 150. If you're not conditioned, 170, 180, 190 beats per minute. That is going to feel like chaos. And at the end of my course where we learn technical skills, like how to do the thing, we do 5 minutes of calisthenics to get them to 150 beats per minute, because that's how long it takes, around 5 minutes of pushing and pulling, air squats, push-ups, jumping jacks, burpees, basic shit. When they get to 150, grown-ass men, 3 minutes into exercise, are moaning and groaning. Oh. And I'm like, nobody cares that you're moaning and groaning. Nobody fucking cares, because nobody's coming to save you. You need to start focusing on your breath and remembering what you're going to do. Do your mental model rehearsal for the execution of the part that we actually train. So when they get up at 150 beats per minute, they're supposed to, as a baseline, be 150. If you're out of shape, which most people are, 60% of our country is obese, then they're going to be at 170, 180, and they can't perform. And their technical proficiency falls apart. And that's what I want to see, because I want to see what you suck at. I don't want to shake you. I don't want to tap you on the back, shake your hand and say, you've accomplished everything, good job, and then you walk away. I want to identify your weakness. Often with physical exertion, getting pummeled on a jiu-jitsu mat, that's where our reality becomes real and we can navigate it. When I used to do active shooting training, people would say, when are we going to do active shooting training? I'm like, at the end. They're like, oh, okay, we're going to do it at the end. So they're anxious. Before they would go into the active shooting scenario, based on the protocol that we taught, I would take these law enforcement officers, grab them by their uniforms on a mat, and I'd start pummeling them. And so we would start rolling basic jiu-jitsu, and I would start applying pressure where needed. Some of the guys who weren't trained in jiu-jitsu would immediately go into a fight or flight. They would start hyperventilating, hyper-aroused, and they would get anxious. They would start like almost screaming. And I would have to coach them, calm down, collect your breath. What they don't realize is if their systems aren't conditioned, their central nervous system isn't conditioned, if that happened for real in active shooting, they would be propelled into that scenario and not be able to act, kill the bad guy, save the good guy, go into harm's way, make rapid decisions under stress, be technically proficient because they are not conditioned for stress, especially physically. I mean, it's classic cases, Uvalde, how it unraveled. And this comfort crisis that we're living in is getting worse. I mean, most people that I know, they interact with their phones so much, they're losing touch and connection with reality, with their physical capability, and they'll virtue signal all day their technical proficiency, but it doesn't mean shit in an actual gunfight, like it doesn't mean anything in a physical confrontation.
Yeah, if you have never experienced trying to perform at a very high level of arousal when your heart's jacked and your adrenaline's pumping through your system, you really don't know what that's like. And it's a very difficult thing to do. You know, I was shocked when I started bow hunting. When you experience that moment when you shoot all these arrows and you're like, oh, I'm really good at shooting arrows. I've got it down. And then all of a sudden a screaming bull is moving through the trees and you have this open window to shoot and your heart is fucking hammering in your chest and your pin's moving around like this. And you're like, oh my God, like I got to figure out a way to calm myself the fuck down. Like I was shocked that where there's really no, I mean, the consequence is I don't want to wound an animal. And I don't want to fuck it up. I want it to be a clean and ethical kill. So there's no danger to me. But yet your heart rate is fucking jacked through the roof because it's an alien sort of experience. It's a very new experience. Multiply that times 100 if your life's on the line. Mm-hmm. Multiply that times 100 if you're actually being attacked by that animal. Multiply that times 100 if a person is trying to get you and you're not accustomed to being able to respond and deal with stress. And that's most people.
Yeah, you'll find this fascinating. This is, you ever heard of the term hypoarousal?
Yes.
So I've heard you talk about it a couple times. The problem with this idea of being hypo-aroused, playing possum, the feign response, is it's not widely studied. There's a woman named Amanda Ripley. Have you ever interviewed Amanda Ripley?
No.
She wrote the book Unthinkable, and it's a real good book on why people live, why people die. I'm fascinated by that shit and survival. She talks about the Virginia Tech shooting. Horrible circumstance that took place at Virginia Tech where shooter goes into the school, kills 32 people, and then kills himself. He goes classroom to classroom, shooting students, like one at a time, at will, at random, shooting them in the head. Like 93% or more of the people he shot in the head. So he's just walking one by one. And this is on me too. This is something fucked up I used to do. I used to teach this course, warrior mindset. You know, this idea about, oh, we got to have a warrior fucking mindset. And when I taught it, I used to use Virginia Tech as an example. And I would say, when does it become real for you to get off your ass and fight for your life? Is it when the 10th student closest to the door gets popped in the fucking head by a semi-automatic pistol? Or is it the second person, the third person? Or maybe your friend, because friends sit together in classrooms. Was it your friend? Was it your friend that woke you up so you could fight for your life? Or was it when the Glock was put against the back of your head and then you went, oh, I need to fight, and then you got popped in it and it's too late, you're fucking dead? Why did nobody fight? And that's because I didn't know better. I was ignorant to the science. There is a response, as noted by Amanda Ripley and in different experiments, of the chicken. You take the chicken and you scare the shit out of it. You put its head on a table like you're going to lob it off and you pet it, it will freeze in paralysis, right? Hypoarousal, not to be confused with hyperarousal, is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it will shut your shit down. And what happened in Virginia Tech is there was a student, and one of the students in the classroom of 13 pretended to be dead. He said when the shooter came in, he heard gunshots, and he put himself in a situation physically where he looked like he was shot. And as the shooter bypassed him one at a time, he heard and was conscious to things, but he was frozen in place. He had paralysis. He said at one point he thought he was shot because he went to move and his legs didn't work. And he was aware, but he was frozen. The shooter left, reloaded, came back, bypassed him again, and continued to shoot. Everybody in that classroom got shot. 9 of the 13 got killed. And he survived. And when he talks about it in reflection in the book Unthinkable, he says, when I went to move, my legs wouldn't work. And I thought I was shot. And I said to myself, this isn't so bad. And he came to terms with everything. There was no pain. There was no suffering. That's because he was hypo-aroused. And sexual trauma victims, by the way, refer to this. They say, I couldn't fight and I feel guilty because I should have fought. There's a statistic that was done on sexual assault victims where 10% claimed that they were in paralysis. What's unique about that situation is 10% is more than the percentage of people who fought. So a sympathetic response versus a parasympathetic response, which means in us, we have a mechanism to quit, to check the fuck out.
What do you think that's for?
They studied it, and they think, this is all speculation, like the possum effect, they think it is for the predator to assume the prey is tainted. Bacteria, virus, not good to eat. And it wouldn't be beneficial for a predator to eat prey that's fucked up, right?
Really?
Because if you're tainted and it eats you, it could mean the difference between survival for itself and its family, the cubs, the wolf pack.
But does it have to have some natural selection aspect to it, or could it just be just overwhelming stimuli and the inability to handle it, so everything just shuts down?
Well, it's both, because the unique thing about human beings is we have, we're parallel primates, right? We go through a situation, like let's say we're walking down a trail and I see a snake. If I see a snake on the ground, I jump back because oh shit, it's a snake. Well, why did I jump back? Learned behavior. Maybe it was genetically imprinted. Maybe my dad taught me. Maybe I just didn't want to die and my central nervous system activated. The difference is animals do that, except when animals do it, they jump and they navigate it, right? It's very primal for them. When we do it, we jump back and then we stare at the fucking snake and we go, dude, I don't want to fucking die. I got kids at home. I don't want to fucking die. If I die, tell my wife I love them. Like, dude, that's a gardener snake. You're good. You're not going to die. Like, oh, okay, cool, right? And you move on. Well, we have this fear of impending doom, and we have this emotional mechanism where we try to create the narrative and contemplation and understanding these things.
Because we can figure out like what could go wrong.
We could figure out the courses of action that could lead to the bad outcome or the good outcome. So here's what I think is unique in teaching resilience. So in combat, it's funny because Amanda Ripley talks about this and asking people in law enforcement and military, have they experienced this? Dude, I've experienced this so many damn times. I have one time I was in a gunfight in Iraq, and I was in a ditch. There was a group of Navy SEALs up in a compound providing security. My buddy Kevin Owens, who works for me now, he's an accomplished sniper in Green Beret. He was on twin 240 machine guns, like in a vehicle. I was in this ditch, and we were looking for improvised explosive devices, like caches, whatever's going to be in a ditch, bad guys. And I have night vision and an infrared laser. And I'm shining it in this ditch. And the Iraqi, who's the tier 1 Iraqi counterterrorism force guy, super squared away guys, he shines his white light in the ditch. And when he does that, a PKM machine gun opens up on my position. So 7.62 by 54 rimmed, ga, 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 and it's firing at us, and tracers go over our heads. I fall on my ass, lift my gun, and start shooting at the point of origin, the poo site. So I'm shooting at the position, and I look down, and he's in the fetal position. And I'm like, dude, get the fuck up. And I hit him. And I know this dude. I've trained with this dude. And he's in the fetal, and he's frozen in place. I'm like, get the fuck up, get up. And he won't move. So I grab him and drag him 20 yards while the SEALs in the compound wall are reacting to contact, and I drag him across this field and get him into the compound wall. And I'm like shaking him. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? And he wakes up. And one of the problems in the mechanism of being hypo-aroused is opiates are pushed into your system to disassociate the trauma. Some even speculate to disassociate the transition from life to death to make it easier, which is fascinating. And I'm like, dude, get your shit together. Like, get up. He gets up. We talk about it post-op back at the base. He doesn't even realize what happened. He's like, dude, he's like, what happened? I'm like, dude, you completely were like, we're in a fetal, like almost crying. I thought you were paralyzed. He goes, I don't remember. Mike, I don't know what happened. I'm like, oh shit.
So his mind just shut down.
His shit shut down. And
wow.
here's where what I figured out. There are triggers in trauma as part of this resilience concept that we don't really think about. This happened to me in Afghanistan in a different rotation. I'm trained as a Green Beret, like going through the woods, doing patrols, my M4, doing that thing, small unit tactics, basic shit that I know. I know Field Manual 7-8 like the back of my hand. It's what I understand. Nobody trained me how to act or how to be conditioned with a 107 millimeter rocket impacting near my position. A 107 millimeter rocket's like this big. It has stabilizers front and aft, and it can be shot off a rock. Like the Taliban would set these things on rocks, lob them. It's a Russian, Chinese munition. It stabilizes and impacts the earth. It sounds like a fucking freight train. It's like, boosh. And when it hits the ground, everything 25 meters in front of it dies. It has a 25-meter kill radius. So everybody is trained for the small unit tactics, react to contact in the woods in North Carolina. That's where we get trained. But standing in the middle of an open field in Afghanistan on a helicopter landing zone, taking 107 millimeter rockets that are decimating everything in your path, scared the shit out of me. The first time that happened, I remember I ran behind a HESCO and I like froze. Now I worked through this circumstance. It's called illusion of centrality. Illusion of centrality has to do with working through what you can control. So if you get overwhelmed by stress, it's going to crush you because you're going to freeze and you potentially would die in place. If you have the illusion of centrality, you have focus on the things that are in front of you because they're within your control. So I was like, fuck, I don't want to die. Get out of your head and fucking move. Do this one thing. So I ran out, I grabbed a concertina wire piece and like moved it, not even realizing my hand was cut. Guys were on the riverside, so they came up through the concertina wire. We got the vehicles in line and started shooting. At that point, there were some of our guys that were hiding under vehicles. Americans, trained for combat, a combat experience, that were frozen in place. Why? Because they had some fucking activated trigger in their trauma that hit that band, that call it a buffer zone, between being resilient and quitting. And it breached that, and they fucking quit. So you could be a trained operator. You could be the most high-speed human being technically in the world, and one thing can set you off, and you could collapse and die in place because you don't have the tools. The reason I'm saying that is because people, if they understand that, will train more. They'll expose themselves to their vulnerabilities and weakness more, including jujitsu, going camping, going hunting, being more resilient by exposing yourself. And they'll do everything they can to create distance between that band of resilience and the band of where they fall the fuck apart.
Did they give you any mental tools in terms of like things to concentrate, ways to think, ways to keep your mind inside a controllable parameter so that you can operate under heavy stress, or at least it'll help you operate under heavy stress?
Not really. But so we learned a lot of this without knowing what we were doing. A lot of people think guys in the military, especially in combat arms, they think we're adrenaline junkies.
Yes.
And that's common. Here's the catch. I don't think any of us are adrenaline junkies at all. I've been on Little Birds, MH-60s, feet hanging off the helicopter, on the way to go assault a target of foreign fighters, sleeping on the helicopter prior to infilling. And hey, get up 1 minute out. Like, Roger, get up, kind of adjust your kit, get everything ready, hit the target, fast roping on targets, hitting the X. My 5 rotations out of Iraq, all of those were with special operations, and all of them very dynamic rotations. I never once, I mean, I've been in situations where I almost was killed, and it was super, super crazy of a situation, but I wasn't overwhelmed with stress. I've looked at my guys on a target, and all of them are standing out in the open in the middle of a gunfight, and they're just kind of hanging out. I'm like, guys, can you fucking take a knee? And they're with night vision, with infrared lasers on their guns, and they're standing out in the open. But I'm like, hey, take a knee. Do something besides standing in the open. So relaxed. So there's another version of this where you're so conditioned. So when I look at my career and my experiences, we were over-conditioned. I don't know if over-conditioned is a bad thing, but we actually were complacent in a lot of ways because we got away with a lot, but also because we were so conditioned for it. The protocols that we teach is, number 1, breathe. And it sounds, I mean, I've heard guys on your podcast, I pay attention to guys like Huberman who put this stuff out. Breathing not only off gases CO2, it also brings you back to your body. It gets you out of your head and brings back awareness in your body. If me and you are free falling, have you ever free falled?
No.
Dude, you got to do that shit.
No, I don't.
I know. Andy Stump is he wants to tether you to his body.
Shit.
For charity.
Fuck off, Andy.
For charity.
Yeah,
We're going to do it
I'd
for
rather
charity.
donate money. I'll cut you a check. Fuck off, Andy.
Oh, man. If me and you were falling, and this is an example of something we did, but we didn't realize what we were doing. If me and you were falling in free fall, and I was the new guy, and you were the senior guy, you would be flying around me like a fucking hummingbird, like zipping around me effortlessly. I would be overwhelmed by stress, freaking the fuck out in my head. I would be very narrow in my focus, not seeing my altimeter, seeing the earth coming closer to me, and scared shitless. If I did look at my altimeter, I would glance at it and it would be hyper-focused. And then you would look at me, and to calm me down, you would do this, right? That's the hand and arm signal to arch. So I would do this.
So what you're doing, for people just listening, you're just shaking your hand.
Shaking your hand, right?
Like it's wet.
It's wet. So this is the hand and arm signal for arch. This is the hand and arm signal to relax. So if you said this, like this, when I did this, I'm literally moving my hands, which is bringing awareness back into my body because I'm not thinking about impending doom in my head. And all of a sudden my body relaxes and I'm like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, oh, I could see my altimeter. Oh, things aren't so bad. We get in our heads a lot, and breathing not only helps optimize oxygen in our body under stress, but it also is the awareness that if I'm breathing, I'm also thinking about breathing, which means I'm not thinking about impending doom, that I'm going to fucking die. The second thing, we could wrap that part up with just affirmation. Most people, we're our own worst enemies, right? We beat ourselves up routinely. I heard you say you don't have to, nobody needs to criticize you because you do it enough to yourself. I'm the same way. I don't need critics because I'm my own worst critic. That could be a detriment. But also, if you look at confirmation bias, the unique thing about confirmation bias is it's like this cell phone. If I pick up this cell phone and I could record in 4K, which is typical of most phones, that's kind of how our brain and our senses work. If I pick this phone up and I push record and record it in 4K, it would stop recording when I've met all the bandwidth. I filled up the memory. And it would crash. And then I would have to partition it. I'd have to shut it down, and it's fucking reset. So if we are thinking about that in psychological terms, in confirmation bias, we create the narrative. Then I go out into the world focused. I can't keep it running in 4K, so I can only partition my focus. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, we're focused, and then we shut it down. We watch YouTube and stare into oblivion for fucking an hour. We get back to whatever, and we're focused. You could only partition your focus. The problem with us is if we are looking for confirmation of the narrative in our heads, we'll go out into the world and we will look for evidence that we are who we say we are. So if you wake up and you're like, I'm a fat piece of shit, then you'll walk into the world looking for evidence of that and go, that dude looked at my stomach. I fucking knew it. He looked in disgust. I'm a fat piece of shit. Because that's how we collect the evidence. Mm-hmm. It's how faith is based. Because that becomes our faith and our new belief. If somebody who's religious doesn't look at an accident, hey, 6 kids died in a van rollover. That's tragic. I question my belief in God now, because God would never do that. They do the opposite. They go, you know what? Was there another vehicle that bypassed through there? Yeah, that could have been T-bone. That had 2 people's lives in it. They have a family. That's a miracle of God. And that reaffirms my faith and my belief. We do the same thing every day. So if you want to become more resilient and more focused as a person, you need to wake up and say, I'm the fucking best. I mean, I know Andy Stumps, Jack Carr, and all the Navy SEALs that I know, they live this because they think they're the best. Navy SEALs think they're the fucking best. That's how you become more resilient, because if you affirm every day, even if you're not, and you say you're good enough or you're the best, you're going to do well. It's like the Jocko shit, it's Goggin shit. It's that easy. You just say, I'm the fucking best. I'm a badass. I'm going to do it. And if you go out in the world looking for that belief, you'll find it and you'll get better.
So you think there's a negative aspect to being too self-critical, because you can sort of program yourself that you are a piece of shit?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what's
But there's also, you could bullshit yourself to think you're the best when you really suck.
a lot of people are like that.
Yeah. So what's the balance?
So let me give you an example. Like if a guy works out with me, I did on my YouTube channel, Mike Glover Actual, I did a mental health video. And my mental health video was simple. I said, don't be fucking lazy. And a lot of people were like, well, what do you mean don't be lazy? I'm like, exactly that. Don't be fucking lazy. Because if you want to do something in your life that requires improvement, it likely correlates to action. And that typically correlates to physical fucking movement. So you want to be a better fighter, you physically got to remove your ass from the couch, flick the Doritos out of your belly button, and get into the fucking dojo, right? So it's a plan of action, not just a plan, period. A lot of people who come to my training, they do 5 minutes of calisthenics. I had a guy, I won't mention his name, I don't even fucking remember his name, but I don't mention this situation exactly. But we're doing 5 minutes of calisthenics and his world is falling apart. He probably shows up with an idea who he thinks he is inside of his head. He does the thing and realizes, holy fuck, 5 minutes of calisthenics just whipped my ass. Maybe I need to prioritize my hierarchy of needs and skills. So I see a lot of guys on social media talking about how they're the best shooters on the planet and they're fucking fat. So if you think being better prepared is focused on being fat and shooting cool, you're not going to survive. You're going to be the first to fucking go, right? So we need to strike the balance. Most people, unless they have the awareness because they're exposed to the weakness, won't do it. And that's why I encourage people, go to your local dojo, get pummeled by, I'm 240 pounds. I have 160-pound kids. Chad Robichaux's son fucking pretzel rolled me a couple years ago. It folded my neck, actually put me in a hurt locker, folded me in half. And I'm like, I need to go on a sabbatical and become better, because when I come back and fight him again, I'm going to pummel this kid to death. We need that kind of exposure in our life.
You definitely need something that gives you a reality check, because there's a lot of delusional people.
Do you see that from hunting? When you go hunting, I assume a lot of it, the addiction of it, has to do with the process and the experience, right? Well,
there's a lot going on with hunting. I mean, it's very primal. It's also the enjoyment of being in the wilderness. That's a big one for me, because for someone whose life is so much stimuli, there's so much going on, so many things to concentrate on. When you're out there, there's only one thing to concentrate on: left foot, right foot. Check your wind, look around. You're hunting. You're concentrating on hunting. You're concentrating on making sure you don't stumble into a fucking mountain lion, because they are out there and we have seen them. But you're also concentrating on, you have this very one singular task: find an elk, get downwind, sneak up on him, put an arrow in his vitals. That's it. That's it. And everything else is secondary. All the bullshit in your life is secondary. There's that. And then there's also, to me, I love the meat. I love the self-sustaining aspect of it, that you're out there getting your own food. I love everything about it. But it's also, I gravitate towards difficult things. I've always gravitated towards challenges. I think it's very important for you. I think it's what's made me more resilient. It's made me more inquisitive. It's made me more self-analytical. like you find out more about yourself by challenging yourself, and you could have these delusional ideas of what you're capable of or who you are. You know, you think you're the fucking man, and then you get your ass handed to you, and you go, "Oh, I'm not even close to the man. Like I don't even know the man. Like I need to become better." And then you just keep showing up, just keep doing it, and it's this constant grind. And one day you can look back and go, "Oh, look at that! I'm a black belt now. Crazy. I used to suck."
It's badass.
I mean, that's how it is with hunting. That's how it is with stand-up comedy. I guess it's that way with podcasting. I think it's that way with anything difficult. And I think difficult things are important to do. You know, I enjoy watching TV and relaxing and hanging out with my wife and kids. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy vacations. I enjoy it. I've figured out how to do that. For the longest time, I couldn't. Because for the longest time, I was just grind. Everything
Same.
was just keep grinding. You know, I don't want to, if I had to like take a day off, I was like, this is bullshit. I should be grinding. But now I've figured out a way that I realize that downtime is actually good for my grind. It actually helps reinvigorate my purpose, my enthusiasm, my tenacity. As long as I don't get sloppy, as long as you just realize what you're doing. This is just use it as a rest and recovery time. And it's good to reignite your enthusiasm for things. Some people don't do that, though. Some people, for whatever fucking reason, they just want to live in this delusional bubble. And you know those people. They're hard to talk to because they're just full of shit. And they're always, all their stories are they're the fucking man and they're the best. And it's like, man, you're going to fall. And you know those people are going to fall apart if some shit happens because they really don't know what it's like to be stressed. They really don't know what it's like to be tested. And I think it's, you know, what you were saying about that shower that you took. I've had similar experiences, and I had this one time when we were, me and Brian Callen were hunting with Steve Ranella in Montana, and we were there, and it was in October. It was freezing cold. Like we're camping, it's like 9 degrees outside, and we're there for a week, and then we checked into this shitty ass hotel in Billings, and they had hot water, and you know, just shitty hotel, like bullshit shower curtain and turned on the water. It was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. Just in this shitty shower, this shitty hotel room with fake wood paneling on the walls, just
the best shower ever.
Just soap and water. Like, I fucking stunk like a cadaver's asshole.
Oh,
but it was
awesome.
amazing. Just washing yourself off and just the luxury of hot water, which is an everyday thing. I don't think about it at all when I get in the shower. I just get in. It's nothing. It doesn't. There's almost no pleasure to it. It's like, oh, this is kind of warm. It's nice. But this euphoric thing only comes to you after 7 days of camping in the freezing cold.
Some scarcity.
Yeah, that's you need that. You need difficult shit. As much as people don't like to experience it, you need it because it will make your sunny days brighter. You need rain. It's one of the things that I think fucks up people about living in LA. It's sunny every day. You can't appreciate what it's like to be in a fucking bad storm because it never happens.
100%. Yeah, I this feast, famine, you know, scarcity, abundance, this cycle of life. People, if they just tune themselves into that, I think it's beneficial. I just set up it's called rewilding. I have a rewilding course, and it's a 72-hour course where we create scarcity. And you know, I have people show up, and through this experience training, they lose their shoes. They actually have to ground themselves to earth. We have fireside chats, like we actually talk to each other interpersonally in front of each other. We tell our vulnerabilities to each other. Some woo-woo shit of just getting back to basics, like basic primal shit. I have an interesting analogy on this topic, especially as it refers to like hunting and trauma. Native American culture, this is not mine. Tom Spooner of Warrior Heart taught me this, and they do this as a part of their tradition in helping veterans kind of unfuck their lives. I mean, most of these guys are addicted to something, and they need comprehensive inpatient care. One of the things Native Americans used to do when they came back from battle, a warrior would get in front of the tribe, fireside, and communicate the things that took place. And if this cup of water was an example of my capacity for trauma, then how much trauma can I hold before it spills? And what's the consequence of spilling? Is it mental health? Is it I'm not as good as a warrior as I could be? What happens? Well, in Native American culture, a warrior that comes back is sharing the burden. So everybody's got a cup, all the women, all the kids, the braves, and I'm pouring a little bit of that trauma into their cup. When Americans get back from war, when Americans get through trauma, how do they share that burden? They don't. They keep it in their fucking heads. And so they fall apart because they have nobody to share that burden with, which is one of the reasons why I think podcasts are so important. When you hold something in your head that you have no explanation for, your mind creates taxing and burden assumptions, opinions that are not healthy. When you talk out loud about it and you get perspective from another human being, you have a way to weigh this, but we also are sharing the burden. I mean, me and fucking Andy Stump talked on a podcast on Cleared Hot about killing kids in combat, where we actually had to take what we thought, I mean, it's hard to gauge the age, a younger man's life in the heat of combat that picked up an AK-47. I mean, me and Kevin Owens standing on a rooftop, he winds up shooting him while he's running towards a checkpoint. We gave him warning shots. We gave all these tactics to mitigate risk to his life. But at the end of the day, he punched the ticket. And it was either our guys at the checkpoint or we could live with that burden for the rest of our lives. And we did it. We had to do what we had to do. Now, if I had that in my head, how would that weigh on me? I fucking killed a kid, man. I fucked up. I fucking killed a kid. But the reality is I was propelled into war. And when me and Andy talked about it, it felt fucking good. Because I shared a little bit of that burden and he was able to relate because he had the same fucking story. The story he shared, he had never said out loud ever. It was always been in his head. After the podcast we talked about it, and he's like, dude, that helped. I don't know why, but talking about it helped. And that's the benefit, I think, of podcasts. It's the benefit of sharing this burden and trauma. And most certainly this and the virtuing of what we want to communicate because we want people to perceive us a certain way versus what lies in this cup and what needs to be talked about are two different things.
Yeah, for people just listening, you just picked up your phone to indicate social media. Yeah, I think what you're on to is dead right, and I think that's probably why the Native Americans did it. And it's probably when you're saying that it helped you and that it helped Andy, it's probably something we're all missing. We really don't have those kind of discussions anymore about the things that bother us. Everybody internalizes, and the kind of communication you do on social media, you're right, it's like a virtue signaling, or it's bullshit. Like you read these verbose passages that people leave on their Instagram pictures, and it's always self-aggrandizing, and
of course.
Yeah, and it's the opposite. It has the opposite effect. It's not cathartic at all. It doesn't help you because there's no. I think we have to do that kind of shit one-on-one too. People have to be there with you. They have to feel it with you.
Yeah, that's. I've realized that over time, podcasting myself. I host Black Rifles podcast, and we fly guys in, and some of these guys want to do it online or virtually. Yeah. And it's never the same. It's never the same. It's never the same. I need the intimacy of talking to somebody in person.
I really figured that out big time during the pandemic. There was a point in time where, a lot of people were very apprehensive about doing the podcast, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but this is the only way we're going to do it. Either you do it this way or you don't, you can be on it a couple of years when the dust settles. But, I can't. It's not, first of all, I'm not going to stop talking to people, and we're just going to take as many precautions as we can, especially once we realize what it actually was. Because in the beginning, everybody thought everyone was going to die. And then once it got to this point where like, I know enough people that have gotten it, and I don't think it's that bad. I think there's ways to mitigate these risks, and we start testing every day. But there were still a lot of people that didn't want to do it. They're like, I can only do it remotely. I'm like, well, see you in a couple of years. I don't know what to tell you. I have to be in front of you. We're not really going to do a podcast unless you're right here. Because the ones that I did online, I did a few of those Zoom ones. Like people, they're not connecting with you.
There's a delay.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's all fucked up.
It sucks. And sometimes people do them without headphones on, which is even worse. Because they can't hear when you're talking, because they only hear when they're talking, because the microphone kind of cuts out the other volume.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Well, as my company developed and we started doing more and more, I kind of realized it's not about preparedness as much as it is about community. And when I started seeing people come together, like I would do a preparedness seminar. I'm doing one at Andy's place, his Black Rifle, next month. When you get 120 people in the room and they hear you talk about the thing, and then they network and people start talking, it's what they're missing.
Yeah.
And like I just ran a resilience rendezvous. It's a resilience. We have this experience thing. The resilience rendezvous was, we had Brian Peters, an NFL pro football player who came in, did cold plunge, hot sauna. We talked about breath work, all that stuff. We did a resilience block with me. We bring in all these experts, these two ultra marathoners. And these are hard skills. These are things they're learning as tactics. What I've reflected on that experience with these students is it wasn't even about that as the benefit as much as it was what we call breaking bread. Sitting around, I hired a chef from Park City, Chef Courtney, John Courtney, and he's doing these classes on cooking elk, cooking venison, food preparation. And then we share that meal together. We break bread and we're having conversations about our families and our kids. And that's when we found profound purpose and built resilience in each other. So walking away going, that's the reset button we all need.
Yeah.
It's like pulling the Nintendo cartridge out of the Nintendo and blowing all the dust out and putting the shit back in. You get a reset. And most people, because they're so tethered to this fucking phone, they're not doing that, which is leading to a mental health crisis, which mental health crisis and statistics isn't just the things we see, the 1 in 5 is diagnosed. It's the shit we're not paying attention to. The fentanyl systemic issue isn't just fentanyl. That's a mental health crisis. 110,000 people in 2022, 107,000 in 2021, and then broke an exponential record from 20 to 21. That's not just drugs. That's people missing purpose, missing connection, and falling the fuck apart. Homelessness, crime, all these things could be attributed to that.
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it when you said that one of the things you're doing with this preparedness things, you're building a tribe. And you're providing community for people, which is so essential. It's so essential. It's missing from most people's lives. And a lot of people have some form of it with whatever their occupation is. But a lot of times that's kind of a bullshit form.
Yeah, it is.
You're wearing bullshit clothes and you're talking a bullshit language, and it's not satisfying. It's also you're not going through the sort of real live things that I think the human mind is conditioned to overwhelm or to overcome and adapt to. I think those things are like inherent to the human condition, and it's a part of being an adult human being, is to have those skills and then the ability to get through difficult things together. You bond through that. And I think without that bond, without that camaraderie and that community, people feel very lost. And I think it's a big part of what's wrong with our culture today. And if someone can sign up for something like your course or Tim Kennedy's course or jiu-jitsu class or fucking anything, just do something where you get together with like-minded people and you struggle together, you overcome together, you do stuff together, you communicate about the lessons that you've learned through those things and what it's meant to you and how it's improved your life. It's gigantic, and it's the difference between the people that have that in their life and the people that don't have it in their life. It's so huge. It's an untold aspect of being a person.
Yeah. Sebastian Junger, his book Tribe, talks a lot about these issues in society. Yeah. I found it very interesting that we bought into the idea that social media was going to bring us together. Yeah. And certainly it has its benefits and it does some good things, but that's for people who have discipline, who have control. Mm-hmm. This dude I follow on YouTube you ever heard of the dude Hamza?
Yeah.
He does this video on these kids addicted to porn. If you as he outlines it and put in my narrative in it, if you think about it, a kid who goes on a porn site and has access to unlimited women, it's virtual, but chemically that's what's happening as a process.
Right.
So what incentive does he have after being with all these women in a virtual reality, does he have to keep himself in shape, to be squared away, to be, I don't know, worthy of the woman in real life, right? So all the chemistry we're losing through the phone because it's a virtual reality de-incentivizes us to get up off our ass to do things to be good in real reality. So if you go to the gym, why do you go to the gym? I went to the gym because I wanted to be the best military asset I could be, but I wanted to be attractive to women. But if you are jerking off constantly off your phone, then how the fuck are you going to do that chemically?
You have no incentive.
You have no incentive. You're like, I'm a rock star. And so that's the problem. I had an ex-girlfriend tell me once, she said, I have thousands of friends. I said, you have like a couple friends. What are you talking about? Well, I have a large following and these people are my friends.
Oh,
those
Christ.
people are your fucking following. They're not your friends.
There are people that you have a loose connection with digitally.
That's it.
Yeah,
they're an
idea that
impression.
those are your friends. I mean, maybe some of them can become your friends. I mean, maybe you have like-minded people that follow you and you could get together with those folks in real life and become friends.
Yeah.
But those aren't your fucking
Those
friends.
are your fucking friends.
Yeah, it's so alien, and it's so it's such a part of everyone's life, and we don't know how to manage it, and it's all new, so there's no real guidelines. There's only people that have fucked it up, or psychologists, or people that really understand human behavior that have looked at it and say, hey, here's all the pitfalls in really being connected to this on a daily basis. But I know some really intelligent people whose lives have fallen apart because they spend too much time reading comments on Twitter and getting in arguments with people and dealing with nonsense and creating problems for themselves and getting involved in these back and forths that just like they're constantly checking to see what other people have to say about it. Like, what are you doing, man? You're giving yourself a weight to carry. That's an unnecessary weight that doesn't make you stronger.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing good about that. Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing good about that.
I'm interested to see how it pans out over the course of another generation because my kids, I have twins, a boy and a girl, and
How
they're
old are they?
3, 3 years 5 months, and my son, he can navigate a phone.
Oh yeah,
like
wild,
with
right?
his fat fingers, just like lumping through it and just
crazy.
And he's so in tune with it, but he sees daddy doing it. He sees daddy picking up his phone. And you can't get away from that, but you could certainly regulate it. I mean, you could certainly be disciplined about the interaction with it. But at the end of the day, they have to have the discipline in themselves to be able to do that, right? Because one day it's just going to be them. And the same thing, I know friends, former employees, people whose lives have come apart, unraveled because of social media, sliding into DMs, consumed with it 5 hours a day. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And people. So here's what I've recognized too. I don't have an addictive personality. I've never been addicted to anything. Like I like whiskey when I like whiskey, but I don't drink it every night. I've never been addicted really to anything. And I see people who I know who have addictive personalities. Their new addiction is social media, and so they can't put it down because it's the drug, it's the dopamine they need. They fiend for it.
Well, they don't have good control of their consciousness. They don't have good control of their intention and their mindset. It's a real problem with people because the thing that's compelling to them they can't avoid. The thing that's compelling is what are people saying? What are they doing? What are they commenting? What are they posting? I got to read it. I got to respond. I got to go back and forth. I have to have the best response. I have to this. I have to that. And then there's people that are addicted to TikTok. They're just scrolling like mindlessly like robots,
Zombies.
watching things happen. And they're not doing anything. And you've lost hours of your time. You've absorbed nothing. You've got no information. There's no net benefit to what you've done. And it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. So many people are doing it. It's wild to watch my kids, like with TikTok, watch them stare at their phones and going through. I'm like, hey, that's the devil. Put that fucking stupid thing down.
Yeah.
Like, what are you getting out of that? You're not getting anything out of that. But what's amazing is, it's really amazing. Watch their ability to navigate through computers and navigate through cell phones. Like my 12-year-old can fucking edit a video with her thumbs in like seconds. I don't even know what she's doing. She's moving shit around and putting it. I go, how do you know how to do that? Like, how are you doing that so good?
Yeah, I think, I can't remember who said this. Somebody was talking to me about it. A Clint Trial, a buddy of mine, was telling me about how we grew up analog, right? We grew up in an analog society where the things that we did were all very instinctive, and we were outside drinking out of garden hoses, fucking running the streets. And that kind of upbringing lends itself to being able to adapt. Adaptation is the number one characteristic of survivability. It's adaptation, being able to adapt on the fly. That top 10% and that 10-80-10 rule, you want to be in the top 10%, you got to be able to adapt. But if your only adaptation is navigating technology, then how is that going to work out for you in the future? And if you look at generations in 20-year cycles, we are the last generation to live analog and not grow up with it at our disposal.
Yeah.
So it means we aren't typically emotionally charged by things that we see or read. We typically don't take things out of context because we want to know in the weeds what the actual truth is. But there are posts on social media. This dude, Sean King, and I don't know if that's going to work out for me calling him out on a podcast, but Sean King, everything I've seen about what he puts out in the BLM movement was being charged with emotionally getting people to go to essentially war in the streets and protest. And those protests turned into something more violent. And that is a problem. When you have a mass of people who are following the herd and you just take something they wrote and it's potentially taken out of context, like hit the streets and burn it down. Maybe you didn't mean literally burn it down, but they're literally burning it down. I mean, the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, who's African-American, who was like, you guys are burning down the city and 50% of the businesses in the city are black. Why are you doing this? And that's my fear for the future of this, especially leading up to the next election cycle, because we are in a world of hurt. The country is getting more divisive, but it's also, we're becoming more and more puppets of the algorithm, and people don't get it, and they're not awakening. And I'm afraid when it comes to suppressing the voices that are being moderate and reasonable, like mine, like yours, what does that look like when you're 6 months out from an election and then the only voices amplified are the voices that are inciting violence in the streets? I was suppressed because I'm telling people, protect your family, be better prepared. And other voices were amplified that were saying, hit the streets and burn it down.
Well, there was a narrative that was being discussed that you would hear, especially amongst left-wing media. There was a narrative of white supremacy, militias. I mean, Biden at one point in time said, white supremacy is the biggest threat that we have in our country. I'm like,
what?
Where is it? What are you talking about? Yes, sure. There's white supremacy. There's morons in every fucking racial group, every ethnic group, every economic group. There's morons everywhere. There's idiots everywhere. There's all sorts of problems in this country. But to say that that's our number one problem, dude, we got a lot of fucking problems. We got a lot of problems. One of the problems is our fucking government. We have giant problems with people that are absolutely full of shit that are running this country. We have problems with algorithms, but we also have problems with bad actors that are utilizing social media with troll accounts. I'm sure we're doing it over here, but most certainly it's being done to us by Russia, by China, by Iran. I'm sure there's many, many countries that have fake accounts that are constantly engaging with people and pushing narratives to more and more extreme levels to minimize our faith in democracy, to get us to hate each other, to keep us at each other's throats. And that's one of the things that they do to keep America weak, keep us distracted. And it's not just the government that's doing that. It's other governments that are doing that. It's special interest groups that are doing that. I'm sure it's both parties are involved in this. And if you're online and you're engaging in this shit, you're susceptible. Yeah, it's the algorithm, but it's also fucking calculated. It's human beings that are they've recognized this has an influence on people, and they're utilizing it because it's a political tool. Because it's a tool for getting their agenda through. And if part of that tool is to demonize someone who's preparing for a potential disaster, and by saying that you're going to equate that to white supremacy or hate or militia, It's fucking madness. And the fact there's no recourse, you can't do anything about it, and that Shopify still stands by their action.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are out of your fucking minds. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's going to make people very reluctant, very hesitant to use your platform. Because I don't want to use it now. If I hear that you guys are, like, when I've heard that PayPal was going to take $2,500. What was like the fine that they were going to have, Jamie, for disinformation? What they termed disinformation, they were going to fine you. You're just going to steal your money?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do with it? And who the fuck are you to say what's misinformation and disinformation? The fact checkers? Those fucking fact checkers are wrong all the time. Yeah. They're biased all the time.
Yeah. PayPal's also a company that froze our account with $60,000. They returned that account, the funds in that account, but they kicked us off the platform as well. PayPal eliminated us.
For what? PayPal's misinformation fine sparks backlash. So here it was. Platform user agreement is rarely an attention-drawing document. However, early this October, PayPal ignited online discussion with its newest policy. What attracted criticism was an unusual provision stating that the company would fine its customers an astounding $2,500 in damages for spreading misinformation. The provision prohibits customers from using PayPal services for activities identified by it as sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials promoting misinformation. Well, the problem with that is what they used to call misinformation now gets discussed openly as being truth. Like the lab leak hypothesis when it comes to COVID. There's like fucking tons of accredited scientists that are saying this is most likely a genetically altered, some sort of a virus that's been manipulated in a laboratory. It's much more likely that it came out of that laboratory, which just so happens to be in the exact area where the fucking virus emerged. Maybe it's not misinformation. But if PayPal decides that it is, because at one point in time the government was promoting that it was misinformation, the NIH was saying that it was, and I'm sure you saw when Rand Paul was grilling Fauci on whether or not they did do a gain of function research and whether or not they funded it, and he's like playing all these words with playing all these games with words and with truth. You could get fined. You could get removed from the platform.
Yeah, the big problem is most of these companies aren't just companies; they're entities and action arms for a political agenda. So if you have a company that's ran by a hedge fund, a venture capitalist, somebody who has massive influence, the Soros play, you have these companies that are changing language, narrative, and doing whatever they want. PayPal literally is taking accounts and they go, we don't like what you're putting out. We don't like the trade. It's a risk to us. We're freezing your account. They did this to me when.
What did they say to you when they if they're gonna freeze your $60,000 and they're gonna remove you from the platform? You can't use PayPal anymore. What are they saying?
They said that the actions go against and violate their policy, and they didn't tell me what the policy was. So what it was when that was put out, and it was whether it was FBI telling Facebook and then put a blast to all these companies. The Shopify, the connection through PayPal, because it was e-commerce and PayPal was a checkout option, got canceled. And then the e-commerce connection from, it's called, it's basically the bank channel from the bank to your e-commerce platform in Shopify. It's a plugin. That got deactivated as well. So WooCommerce, Shopify, PayPal canceled us. And they said, it goes against our policy, but we won't tell you what the policy is. Originally, PayPal canceled me for a period of time because they said I was selling a knife. We don't sell knives. And we did a picture of a knife. The knife industry knows this. This is freaking crazy. Josh Smith from Montana Knife Company deals with this all the time. If you have a knife and you advertise it on Facebook, that's like advertising a gun, essentially. They will take you down and they will cancel you, suppress you. Because it's a
pocket knife.
It's a pocket knife and a hunting knife. But they won't delineate between that and like a weapon of war, assault knife, whatever they want to call it, right? So they have these stipulations where they say, if you are violating our terms, we don't have to tell you what term you're violating. And so the problem with that is not just that they're canceling you. The problem with it also is there's not any onboarding options. When you don't have options in the e-commerce because everybody's on the damn platform, then how are you going to work that way? Like Facebook, everybody's like, well, screw Facebook. Yeah, I want to say screw Facebook, but I'm a small business entrepreneur trying to drive sales and conversion through a market.
Yeah.
And there's billions of people on Facebook. Sure, I can operate in an echo chamber in Heber City, Utah, but I would like the opportunity to grow my business like everybody else on this platform and do good, but I can't do it because we get canceled. And I think a lot of it too.
So was it just a knife? I mean, was it what
just
did
a
they,
knife.
It
was a picture of a knife for hunting that originally got us flagged.
Was it a knife you reviewed or
No,
recommended?
it was a knife. It was a knife that we showed a picture of with a picture of the knife in a log, and the knife was sticking in a log, and it was talking about knives in survival, like best options for survival knives.
So it was just like an article.
Nothing. I have never done anything extreme because I know how to fucking play the game. Like I know psyops, I know propaganda, I know what to say, what not to say, and I play the fucking game. And even when playing by the rules, because we fit in a category that they don't like, we get fucking suppressed.
It's just amazing that they can just arbitrarily decide to remove you from the platform when if they had an objective look at what you do, they'd go, oh, this is not bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it seems like something that you'd want everybody to know a little bit of.
Yeah. Well, the firearms industry as a whole deals with this.
Yeah.
If you have, I think Bank of America was involved in this. I might be mistaken here, but Bank of America and a few other banks said, hey, if you're doing any transaction with guns, we're going to cancel you. I have my FFL SOT. I have the ability to move, transfer guns, buy guns, sell guns. And if I work with certain banks and do certain things like e-commerce platforms, they'll shut you down. Like you can't own and operate a gun business under Shopify. But my intent was like, oh, we're not going to do that. And so we'll do firearms training. Oh, well that might be a problem. Like so being responsible by teaching people responsible ownership and handling is a problem now. So a service industry, product industry, and firearms anything is bad. Big Commerce came in. They're like, we don't care what you do as long as it's moral and ethical. We'll support you, and that's the only reason we're open today as a business.
Well, we're very fortunate that there are companies like that do exist, but it's very disturbing to me that a company like PayPal would just decide arbitrarily that someone who teaches preparedness is a danger, or some company that they don't want on their platform. And they just arbitrarily remove you. Yeah, and not even like have a hearing on it, any form of a discussion.
Well, I'm such a small player, and it's easier to blanket statement and execute than it is to look into the details. Because
there's no appeals process?
There's no appeals process. Like Shopify, I love Shopify had a team because we were in the top whatever % of businesses doing a lot of revenue. We had a team that we moderated with to allow us to kind of optimize the experience for the end user. We wanted to plug in different things. It was a great user experience as an entrepreneur. When they offboarded us, we called the team, was like, dude, what's going on? And like, we can't talk to you guys. Like, what do you mean you can't talk to us? Like, what's going on? Like, read the email. The email said you have 48 hours to pull all your data. It's going to be erased forever. And we're like...
So do you think they were contacted?
100%. I think they're contacted by the FBI on the back end. And Jamie, I don't know if you could do this, but if you even Google Mike Glover, I don't know, militia, or Mike Glover domestic terrorist, this organization wrote this 20-page article, and USA Today republished the article.
What organization?
It's the Capitol Hill or some shit like that, the Capitalist or something. So nobody heard of this reporter, leftist for sure, like extremist, extreme. Everything in the article is about like this guy is a CIA guy, and he's starting his own militia, and he's anti-government and all this things that I've never said. 20 pages. The problem was not that article, because people write things in echo chambers all the time. The problem was national media was like, this is spot on. Let's blow this up. So they took the article, they republished
using
it.
that as proof without proof.
Without proof.
So someone could just make these negative assertions about you.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, in the article, they call me a white supremacist, which is like, I have always identified, I'm very proud of my Korean heritage, and I identify as an American first, but I'm Asian American. I mean, I have Korean in me from the Korean War. I mean, my dad was in the army. And
That's
my
just
mom
a
in Korea.
cover-up for being a white supremacist.
Of course
I know
it
what
is.
you're doing.
I'm Asian from the waist down, man.
Did you find the article?
It's the Capitol, whatever. They might have took it down. That would be interesting if it's not up.
That would be interesting if it's already the damage is done and then just remove it.
Like Mike Glover, CIA cuck or something like that.
What a fucking world we live in.
That week, so I did a YouTube video on my Phil Cross Survival channel on YouTube, and I said I'm not a domestic terrorist. I said I'm not a domestic terrorist. I never did anything. I'm loyal to this country. I serve this country honorably, and I have every means to do good in this world, and I'm going to do that. Nobody has to worry about anything. Like I'm basically getting ahead of it in PR because this shit, everybody's hitting me up like, oh shit, and I'm afraid we're going to lose business because of this. So I put this out into the world, and in the YouTube video, I said I've even worked with FBI, and I said that because I'm like I've cooperated. Like American Contingency had some nut job take a picture of an FBI guy's ID or business card, and when he did that, I was like, well, I have this girl named Heather who's a former West Pointer. Intelligence officer background, super squared away. I said to Heather, what do I do? What do I need to do here? She goes, you need to at least at a minimum write an email to the FBI agent, because he got a picture on it, that his information was posted on a public forum on AmericanContingency.com, and nothing was done, but that picture was taken down, and we need to report that. So we did that. That was the level of my cooperation. So on one side, I have people calling me a domestic terrorist. On the other side, I have people sliding in my DMs calling me a bootlicker. They're saying, "Oh, you're a cuck for the FBI. You work for them. You're a CIA operative. You're a deep state actor." Like, what the fuck? And I'm somebody who I have a CBD fucking company. Like, we do CBD products because I believe in cannabinoids and like I'm a hippie and I don't give a fuck about the fringes. I'm a moderate. I operate somewhere in the middle. And on one side, I'm a right-wing extremist. On the other side, I'm a bootlicker. And I'm like, I'm somewhere in the middle, I guess exactly where I need to be. But that's the world we fucking live in.
That is the world we live in, and that's one of the reasons why free speech is so important. Because if a person like you can be labeled without any recourse, if you can be removed from social media, they could shape a narrative about you, and you can't say anything about it. And they could decide